Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Primi Mohammed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.
Yes, it is time for Court of Blades, and look at that, look at the time, look at the timing, the perfect amount of timing, 50 months, 37 in a row. Thank you so much for the resub, the tier 2 sub, Prince Justin, very much appreciated. Thank you so much, my friend. I hope all is well, and welcome everybody. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to a Friday stream. It is June 9th, 2023, here on the channel. I want to welcome all Arvanauts, and of course, welcome all Speculate listeners as well, as we continue with Court of Blades Valloward. It's session 9, and I'm feeling very much into tonight's session because of what it's going to be about. I hope you folks all like trains and paranormal activity. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. Just very quickly, I will mention that today my focus, of course, is on Speculate. The folks who are able to sub and resub to my channel, thank you so much for doing that, and I do encourage everyone to follow my channel, but also please consider supporting us over on Speculate. !Speculate is our podcast that runs shows for Court of Blades Valloward, and has until very recently been doing a bunch of things with Strange Friends, Girl by Moonlight, and other things like that. Strange Friends still does do some one-shots, and we are in the midst of ramping up and getting ready for what will be the second campaign, sort of regular campaign on the channel. But all of that is helpful if you are able to support us over on Speculate. You can get some behind-the-scenes looks at things and also move us towards even higher and higher heights. We are, of course, a New Jersey Web Fest, Web Festival. I forgot to put that up before, but there you go. New Jersey Web Festival selection. So that is rapidly moving forward as well. So you can support all of that by letting us know that you've done so, by tweeting us out, by spreading the word, and of course by supporting the Patreon. Again, !Speculate will get you there. Yeah, I know exactly. What exit are we talking about? I actually don't even know where it's being held, but I'm going to be there in person. Obviously, I'll be there. So, but I am very excited for tonight's session. One quick programming note: tomorrow I will be on Saturday night late, and I don't know how late, because tomorrow is my lovely son's birthday party. As you folks know, my son Mini Arv has just turned 7, and so it's going to be his birthday party tomorrow, and we're going to have a fun time, and I'm going to be starting as a consequence Jedi Survivor later. Tomorrow is also when I will be doing the Patreon Field Chat Chosen Game of the Month nominations, because I forgot to do that earlier this week. So we're going to do that tomorrow. So my guess would be around 8 to 8:30 that will start, but it could be 9 p.m. Eastern that will get started after that. So it's going to be amazing. Mini Arv is getting less mini, I know. And Little Arv, as you know, Geister, directly, is, of course, now just finished, literally just had her last day of freshman year of high school. She's a sophomore in high school, y'all. I cannot even believe it. But anyway, that is for a later time. But let's talk a little bit about the amazing Speculate crew. And so I'm going to unmute myself and apologize unreservedly for anyone I may have interrupted because I can't hear them. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to reveal the spectacular crew. And look at this crew. Okay, everyone should just screenshot this and be like, "Damn, this is where it's all at." For those of you listening at home, we just did an incredible screenshot, so I am sorry that you didn't see it yourself, but we're glad that you're listening. And I'm going to hand things over to the inestimable dancing master known as Mike Underwood. Mike, my friend, over to you. Take it away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. Valloward is our Court of Blades actual play series of Renaissance fantasy with cool, weird magic and secret various intersecting buried histories, warring families, drawing upon various resources and inclinations, fighting over the acclaim and status of the lead house in the great dance of houses in this city, the jewel of the archipelago, informed by the Caribbean in our world, in a setting that has been creatively and collaboratively made by the players of this game, including folks who are not able to join us tonight. And the first thing that I want to do is just let everybody know on stream, if you watched my GM prep and like recap stream from a few weeks ago, you heard this already, but unfortunately, Premi Muhammad has had to step back from being a regular cast member in the series due to being incredibly busy doing a million things. If you follow Premi on socials, you probably understand, because she's got a bunch of different projects happening, doing a ton of different things. And so she sends her love to everybody. She was really happy to be a part of the game, but this was just not something that fit in her schedule anymore. And we are very sad to see her go. But that means that we were in a position to be able to reach out and start to include some other people in the game. And so we're very happy to have a guest star tonight, who I will invite to introduce herself here in a moment. I'm going to ask the other kind of main cast players to briefly introduce themselves to folks, just in case people are coming here new, and then our guest star Darcie will get to introduce herself, and then we'll talk about what's been going on in the game and how we're going to manage some of this kind of cast stage business of characters stepping back and new characters coming in. So if the players can remind us who you are, starting with Rhiannon.
Hey, Rhiannon Held, professional archaeologist, which I forget to say sometimes because it's boring to me now. I write urban fantasy as Rhiannon Held, the Silver series, and then space opera as RZ Held. Got a novella series called the Amsterdam Institute series.
I guess I should be me then. Aha. Hello, everyone. It is I, Brandon O'Brien. I am a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago. You may know me from doing almost everything else on this channel, including writing the Grey Shade RPG alongside Greg, which I'm very excited to share more details about very, very soon. But tonight, I will be playing Zelfa Hamill, the key of the group.
Very exciting. Welcome everybody again. My name is, on this channel, Arvin Eleron. In real life, Gregory Wilson. I am an author and a college professor. I am in the midst of my own trilogy, and whoops, I slipped and accidentally showed the arc that just appeared on my page, which is Renegade. Whoops, sorry. Let me just move that out of the way just for a moment. Anyway, it's really beautiful, and I'm super excited, and it is part of that series which Brandon is working on with me, with Grey Shade. And do we introduce just ourselves? Do we mention our characters? Do we just do that as well?
Just players for now.
Okay, so just players for now. So yeah, that's me.
All right, and we're very glad and excited to welcome Darcie Little Badger. Darcie, tell us about yourself.
Hello, thank you. No, I'm really excited to be here. This is such a cool game that I've been watching on YouTube, catching up. And I'm a writer of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. My books are young adult fantasy novels, Elatsoe and A Snake Falls to Earth. And actually, my third book, edits are due on Tuesday. So that hasn't been announced yet, but it's one of those where the contract has been signed and all that. They're just waiting. So that'll come out. It's another young adult fantasy, but I also write short stories. I dabbled in script writing and comics and various things. And I used to be an oceanographer, but I'm now a full-time writer as of 2020.
Excellent. So yeah, we were very excited, or I was very excited when Darcie said that she was interested, and then I went and squeed to Brandon and Greg. And so
I've played with Darcie before on here, so I'm excited to have Darcie back.
Yes. Greg specifically mentioned having a really good time playing with Darcie on, I think that was the Tales from the Loop game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yet another
That
person
was
got to
so
see me
much
cry
fun.
during a tabletop game, which is always Brandon's fault. So just
Yep.
so you all
Yes,
know.
I jammed that game. It was
I
fun.
know. I know it.
I expected the same level of feelings now that Darcie is part of this crew as well.
Right, it'll be Darcie's fault. I just been,
Yeah.
oh, that Greg sobs all the time. Like, I don't know.
And for folks that don't know me, I am Mike Underwood. I publish as Michael R. Underwood. I write action, adventure, science fiction, fantasy across a variety of genres. My work is best known for kind of genre savvy humor, found family vibes, and inclusive casting to the best of my ability, which is always trying to be slightly better time on time. And for this game, I'm going to be the dancing master, which is a fancy way of saying game master because it's cool. And the Drakes used it, and I have taken it and embraced it wholly. We are playing Court of Blades, which, as I said, is a game by a couple of Drakes. If folks could, if someone on the mod squad could throw in that link back to a couple of Drakes, itch.io. Brilliant. Thank you, The Rising Tides. So this is a Renaissance fantasy game. If you think something like The Three Musketeers, or what if Romeo and Juliet was actually about the house politics and not a pair of teenagers having a 3-day love affair that ends with like 5 deaths, that's what we're doing here. So this is warring houses in a setting that combines elements of something like kind of the Italian city-states and or like Paris, as well as pulling in a number of influences. Things that are on my touchstones list are like the TV show Arcane from League of Legends. But then we're also using this different fantasy setting. We used the game Ex Novo by Shark Bomb Games to help build the setting, and that was with Preemie, Brandon, Greg, and Marie Bilodeau, who has played but has not largely been available. And so her character is still around, but she hasn't been able to be in as many sessions. And we've got this cool city that is mostly similar to like a 17th century, like Western European or Southern European city, but there is a variety of types of magic. There is like an earth type magic that is endemic to this region. And there are 6 great houses that have a variety of origins, but are now at the kind of the top of the hierarchy status wise in this city. And in order to not just have like all out warfare in the streets, there is something of a codified agreement of niceties between the different houses, where like if you're gonna murder somebody, you have to be discreet about it. Honestly, no like 30-person brawls in the street. Like just be cool. Poisoning is very dignified. And the characters here are members of a coterie that serves one of these houses, House of Vorster, the old house of martial valor, a house that has been on Valloward since the founding of this settlement as Valloward. We know now that this island had previously been occupied and settled by a group of people known as the Dialta, who, for some reason that we have not yet discovered, left the island centuries before the people from this other continent, Javelin, came to this island. So we have a situation where there are some layers of history. There's layers of history within the settlement that's contiguous, and then there's history before that, and then there's a bunch of interesting weird magic stuff that's happening. So we've got a few different dimensions, and most importantly for tonight, you should know that we have magically powered maglev trains in this city. And we'll get back to that in just a moment. Now I will invite the recurring players to remind us of who your character is. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Preemie's character and how we're going to kind of pull them backstage in the series. So Rhiannon, if you want to tell us about your character.
Hey. Yep. So I play Jensia. She is the knack, so she does the magic. She's generally pretty quiet, always listening, always tagging along. Always interested in new sources of magic and new magical knowledge. So.
Hello, I play Zelfa Hamill, the key of the group, described as a social mastermind. Very invested in being right all of the time. very good at talking one's way into or out of trouble, which they do a lot primarily because they're also a member of the Dialta diaspora on the island.
Good stuff. I play Carevis Diorencio, who is the Bravo, who is a exceptional at dueling and at combat techniques, but also likes to believe being sharp of wit and appreciates an exchange of wit at times. And it just occurred to me literally just now, one of the most important relationships that I've built up is with a lot of the areas of the city where I think the church has been able to do some good, and specifically Father Cartagano. And it just struck me because I've been talking quite a bit over the last couple of weeks about seeing season 1 of Daredevil for the first time, about how similar this is to Daredevil's relationship to the priest in there, and how there's a lot of like back and forth between those two of them. And that just occurred to me just now, and not at all because I've been way too interested in Daredevil recently. But Carevis is a character who tries to do his best by House Vorster and the people within it.
All right. And so because Premia is not able to be like an active participant here, what we're going to do is I'm going to say that a few days ago, the coterie would have been kind of called to like a fairly small meeting room where Morgaine Vorster, who is the eldest child and the recognized heir of House Vorster. So they are not yet the princept, like the principal leader of the house. Their mother, Suan Vorster, is still the princept, but Morgaine is taking on more and more responsibility and is your coterie's handler. And they explain that Lutris is going to have to be kind of pulled from the coterie for a special mission that is kind of at the highest level of secrecy and discretion for the house, and that it is better for everyone, and especially for Lutris's safety, if you don't know what he's going off to do. And so you get, that morning to say your temporary farewells. But what you will get is you're going to be able to be joined by the Hidden Eye of Vorster. And so, most people have two eyes, right? And we have talked about the other characters like, oh, this is the Bravo of this, the Knack of there. Because I already introduced a character, Zalia, as the Eye of Vorster, and we have a new character who is an eye, I wasn't going to tell Darcie, no, you can't do that because there's an NPC. So instead, we're going to have Vorster is going to have two eyes, because it was either that or do you want to play this character that I've already created? Which, I mean, maybe, but I would rather Darcie get to make her own character. And so what we're doing here is there is another Eye of Vorster. And what I would love to do now is spend a little bit of time kind of at the writer's room level and talk about how Mark or Marcello knows these other characters and how they know him, which we can do in kind of in flashback style, or in the way that a TV show will introduce a new character and be like, oh yeah, everybody knows who this person was. They were just off doing something. So Darcie, why don't we take a look at your character sheet at the section labeled bonds. So in Court of Blades, you get these prompts that are suggested as ways that you can draw connections between your character and other characters. And what I'd like to ask is if there are any of these lines that intimate a dynamic that you would be interested in playing with one of the other player characters, where somebody else is the name that goes in the blank. So my job is easier when I'm alone, but blank never spoils the game. And then there's a few other options.
Right. So out of the characters here, is there anyone who's, I don't want to make assumptions, particularly scientifically minded?
Everyone like turns to look at Jency.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That'd be, I would think.
Well, maybe my job is hiding my true self. Blank sees me anyway might apply to your character if they ever spoke. I think that my character is like a very friendly, pleasant, unassuming person, but his true self underneath it all is that he considers all the people on the planet, as delightful and as cool as they are, almost like guinea pigs in this great big. And so he, step above his toy, like they're guinea pigs. And it's interesting, in a scientific way, he likes to sometimes pit people against each other, see what sort of reactions provoke certain responses. And it is almost scientific, even though he himself doesn't really have much of an academic background. So I think if our characters ever got to talking, that might become evident. But what do you think?
I mean, I think that makes sense to me because Jency's background is academic, and I think she would like have the radar for that like vibe of like somebody who's sort of like watching the world more than participating in particular things or being like, I think she would pick up on that, and not necessarily like call it out or anything, just like make a little mental note of her own.
All right. That sounds good. Like it starts with observations and then like, well, you gotta sometimes run experiments. No, it's mostly observations.
Yeah. And based on kind of Mark's skill set, what type of like spy intrusion type of work do you think would be his specialty? Either what he like how he got on the house's radar as someone, and radar doesn't exist, but that's the term that's really easy and I reach for. What would it be like his calling card as a skill?
Yes, he spends a great amount of his time going to different social events, ranging from like high class parties with the nobility to anyone's invited type gatherings in pubs or and in between, and this type of person who tries to intimate himself just about everywhere but not really take the center of attention. But I think in terms of the House Vorster, he is interested in obtaining some sort of political leverage. So it might be that he would try to make connections with people that he'd think would get him within, get the attention of people who could make him the eye or the hidden eye and all that. So like just a long-term plan of trying to meet the right people and show that he could be useful to them. And I'm going to say my character, I put him as nobility, but he's like very, very low down. So like a vassal earl of the house, like not some high-ranking individual. So for him, he feels like in order to have a future, he needs to get to a higher level.
Okay. Cool. And so I think the house would probably be deploying Mark as like, okay, we have informants, and there's informants, and then there's informants. And so, you're probably working closely with Morgaine and with Caitlin Vorster, who is the younger heir, the third child, who is the one in the family who is magically adept. And so like the family is probably saying like, all right, these are the things that are happening. We would like you to go to this party and get us this type of information. Go here. We've lost track of this person. And so doing a lot of like legwork, but in a way that doesn't then get traced back, because getting information without other people knowing you have information, doubly good.
Excellent.
How does that sound?
Sounds perfect. I'm sticking this in notes so I don't
for sure
forget.
And then I'd love to see if we could come up with one more bond for Mark. So if there's another prompt that you think might make sense as a connection with Karevis or Zelfa.
Well, is there anyone who might be watched for any reason? That last one's kind of intriguing. I'm watching.
Zelfa.
Yeah, Zelfa. Hello.
If I'm wrong, tell me. But
yeah, you're not wrong. If anybody were to cause trouble, that would probably alienate them from the house on a regular basis. So it would probably be Zelfa, who very regularly, I guess, starts diplomatic conflicts with gangs. So
All right,
yes.
that sounds like a good reason that you know what there it's not like it's not an antagonistic eye. Like he's just making
Mm-hmm.
sure that everything stays
Mm-hmm.
stays calm and
Which I also like because, like, one of the things I think would be very cool in terms of playing that bond is I like the idea that I don't know that you're observing me.
yes. It would be
That,
very
like,
hard to tell.
all this time, no one let me know that I was a problem for the house. And then at some point, I just learned, oh, I was being observed the entire time. Cool. Glad
You
to know
see
you trust me.
a library full of like tomes that he's written about you. No, that's too creepy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to tip my hand to the audience slightly, I have just now informed Darcie the reason why Mark has been asked to like watch and follow Zelfa.
Okay.
And so we've got that set up here. Does anybody have or so actually, Greg, do you have a bond that hasn't been selected that you think might make sense to be a connection with Mark?
Let's double check and see. Whoops, that's the wrong. Never mind. This thing behind a curtain. I is pro streamer. Hold on a second.
If you like this show, you can support Speculate at patreon.com/speculate.
There we go. Okay, that's the one.
Mhm.
That's the page we're looking for. Okay. So let's see. Under bonds. Okay, so I had Lutris, I had Kara. I don't, well, okay, well, see, because one of them is blank, lacks my flair and panache, they will learn it in time. So there's an image that I could say, like, Mark, like, because I was thinking about the idea that Mark is this unassuming person, but I also really don't want to play Karevis as the, I'm adult and I have no idea that you were actually, so I'm not sure. Maybe maybe the way to look at it would be that Mark may lack my flair and panache, but I have this sort of like something does not quite fit with Mark's character that I don't quite read, and I find them intriguing right at the same time. So I'm like, maybe he is not what I assume him to be.
The one I'll pitch for you, Greg, is despite my obvious grace and skill, Mark is still not impressed. I will win him over yet.
Yeah, I saw that too, but because I was trying to avoid like obvious, like big problem breaks immediately in the group. I'm okay with that. Because I don't want to be performing it as just like I need to show off or something, but maybe I could see that. I can imagine the idea that Mark's always holding something like in reserve, and perhaps I'm always kind of like, hey, let me. You can tell me more than this, and I'm that sort of thing. So he will acknowledge my coolness. Yes, exactly. Right. No, exactly. All right, that's fine. I will add that.
So that gives everybody some kind of like pre-established dynamic along which to play character relationships. And what I'll say to everybody is, if you want to like flash back to some previous interaction, to like either contrast or set up some moment, that's absolutely stuff we can do. We'll just we'll frame the scene collaboratively and play it out, and we'll do this whatever backfilling we need to work Mark into the story. But the recap stuff that I'll do is that you completed kind of one social season of work for the house and pursued a few missions. One that you weren't able to pursue last season was investigating a street drug that gives people extraordinary luck. That is still kind of that is still out there. You followed through and were able to lay to rest the Revenant Julian Villanzo, who was a founding member of House Fairest from the age of the city's founding, like almost a legendary hero in truth, who had been resurrected using forbidden necromantic magic and set against the ruling houses, partially by being fed particular information, but partially also because they're all ruling houses, and he comes from a faction that was about like equality, and egalitarianism, and House Fairest presents themselves as that, but have been incorporated by this kind of aristocratic rivalry system. And then the other missions that were on your docket for this season are, one, at the end of the summer will be the Hibiscus Tournament, which is a invite-only tournament that is largely dominated by the bravos of the great houses, where the bravos of great houses and then a few others are invited to a very prestigious, very socially fancy tournament. And the expectation with the Hibiscus Tournament is that most of the matches are won off the pitch, not on it. Right? There's drugging, there's blackmails, there's poisoning, there's, any amount of shenanigans that you could possibly imagine, social posturing, favor trading, all that kind of stuff. We'll get there, but that's not tonight. The thing that it was on your plan that you'd said that you wanted to pursue tonight was an errand regarding a ghost, and I will repeat the write-up that you were given by Morgaine, just so everybody gets a refresher. Our sources have learned of a ghost haunting the Sunrise Line at night. While there are not many passengers aboard the train at this time, the disruption it causes undermines one of Valloward's shining accomplishments. If you are able to solve the problem while the Valloward Rail Association's own investigations fail to bear fruit, the debt they would owe us could make up for some of the ill will they bear the house. And that ill will is largely, due to the fact that Vorster basically hired away from the Rail Association a prominent magical engineer who was one of the guests that was at the Founders Day party and was one of the targets of the assassination attempt. If you remember, this is a character that Marie's character, Kara, had interacted with. And so while you have a claim on the train system, as this is one of the aspects of the city that Vorster is responsible for, you have this bad relationship with the Rail Association. So it makes every bit of sense that you would pursue this phenomena and attempt to make things right, or kind of at least restore balance, make sure that everybody is safe. But you're going in with this kind of highly fractious and tense relationship with the people that actually operate the train. And so that's why it's something that's worthy of the coterie's attention, as opposed to something that any one of these characters could go and figure out on their own. Other things that you would know: the Sunset Line is a train line that goes into the kind of the middle of the island. So Valloward, the city part, is mostly on the eastern side of the island, and then there are some mountains. There are great orchards and people who live kind of outside the city doing farming and ranching. And then there are some kind of basically country villas for some members of the nobility. So these are like country homes for some of the great houses, and also just other fancy pants rich people buildings. And the Sunset Line goes out all the way to those country villas. And that's why it's the Sunset Line, because it goes to the west where the sunset is. Okay. If you have other questions about kind of basic train system operations or things like that, you're welcome to ask me, and I can give that to you without having to go into a scene for a roll. Otherwise, it's going to be up to y'all how you want to address this.
How long has this been, has this ghost been disrupting affairs? Do we know?
It was probably 2 going on 3 weeks at this point, because it was in the dossier you were presented at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
And what type of disruptions are these? Nothing violent yet, or?
It has mostly been people terrified, because within this like city and this the kind of the settler civilization on Valloward, ghosts hanging out is just not a thing that's common. People do not have that relationship with the deceased. So it is more like a haunting kind of relationship where this ghost appears only after a certain time at night, and while there are not many people around, this person's presence and the fact that they appear to be quite distraught is causing the disruption.
So I'm sure this is an obvious question, which is why I'm going to ask it, which is, how sure are we that it is a ghost?
Good question. You know what's the best way to find out is go and see.
I mean, that's where Jensia's mind is going. She's very sort of like, all right, so we like get on the train and we ride it at night and see what happens and profit. So she doesn't really see the need for any plans or anything.
Okay.
Plot twist is just a loose bolt rattling in some air vent somewhere.
No, I can't. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, just I reveal my my secret plans, which is cakewalk adventure. You're done in 5 minutes, and we just hang out and chat for another hour.
I can't We'll talk more about the Batman and Daredevil. I can't wait for the moment at the end of all this where the person just like pulls off the sheet, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you damn kids. Like that's clearly where we're heading here.
So Brandon, would we hack Brindlewood Bay to play like a Scooby-Doo series?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That sounds like a thing that doesn't require much work at all. But yes, mental note.
Okay.
Oh man. All right. So I guess the first step for us then is to get tickets for this, yes?
Surely if we're running an errand, we don't actually need to ride the line, do we?
Do we want to let them know that we're actually House Vorster, or do we want to let them, whatever this ghost is, believe that we're simply a passenger? If we go on there and we're out there looking for them, it's less likely to appear. If we are one of the other easily frightened nobles, maybe they show up more quickly until a sword appears, if you know what I mean.
Say, train rides can be very pleasant. I'll bring some wine, or I don't know if that's the best idea, but if we want to blend in, we should probably drink a little.
Fine by me.
Do we know, by the way, quickly, out of character for a second, do we know, I know you said that these go out to like the villas and things like that. Is this principally a rich person's transport, or is this the kind of thing where there is a broader base of people that could theoretically ride on this train?
So the ridership for this line is usually people going to parties at the villas and coming back from them. Laborers either coming and going, because thanks to a train, you could work in a household but live in the city, as opposed to what happens more frequently, at least in like this period in Western Europe, which was you just live in the household. So there are some like working class laborer type folks. There's also some shipping that happens. Like, you know, you've got there's a few train cars, and then there's some freight that is moved, because if you have a train system in a city, you can move stuff, and that's great.
Okay. So it definitely is mostly either upper class or working people who are working for the upper class, one direction or another. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to get a sense.
I love how, just as an aside, I love how we've done so much world building for this place where Mike is like, I'm very glad that there are so many touchstones for the Caribbean that we get to put here for Brandon. And then we just keep stumbling on things that Mike didn't know are accidentally still very Trini, because immediately I'm like, there are parts of Trinidad where only rich people go, specifically to party with other rich people, and where the chances of meeting a middle-class person are so low, there are no public transportation routes to that place. So like, yeah, Zelfa has a lot of feelings about this about this train.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, and like the fact that the cars of the Sunset Line are always clean and are the first to be updated, I'm sure that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure if I ride this train, I will meet another Dialta person, and when I come off the train, I will meet yet more Dialta persons very easily. I'm sure that's a thing that happens on this train all the time. /sarcasm.
So So the question is, can we get some kind of cover for us as we get these things? Get tickets to go as regular nobles instead of House Vorster specifically, or if we're going to go as House Vorster, perhaps not as exactly us. We have made a bit of a name for ourselves over the last season, yes? And the last thing we want is for people to assume that we're here to cause problems for this ghost, which I think we've had our share of undead in this last few months, haven't we?
Counterpoint, as low members of a house, obviously it stands to reason that we're the kind of people who like to cause a certain kind of trouble. So if we just say we're going to a gala, people will believe us.
You want us to be party crashers, Alpha?
I mean, this is something that I always want, but in this particular instance, I think it would be easier than making up any other story. We could be going to any party at all, even all of them, and people will believe we're the kind of people who would.
As an aside, since my character has skills in what's it called, basically socializing, could I roll to see if there's an actual event like in the West that is happening the day that they're going to investigate, like a wedding or a party or something that he has invitations to or could get some for?
Sure. So that sounds like you're describing the action consort.
Yes, that's it.
Fantastic. So to help you kind of get your bearings on the system, if you want to click on consort, it'll start the process for a die roll.
All right. It says position.
Yep. And so this is going to be, we'll say that this is controlled. So if you click the drop down and go to controlled, that is the least risky position. And then your effect is going to be standard.
All right. Submit, standard. All right. No bonus dice.
So for bonus dice, you could spend 2 stress to push yourself and gain a die, or someone could assist you, or you could take a lady's favor, which is I come up with a cost, but you get a bonus die. This is not an especially fraught roll, so I don't know that you'd need any bonus dice because you're already re-rolling 3d6.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we just crash something as we said.
Sure. Okay, so on a 4 or 5, you know that there is actually a minor noble house that is hosting their Highbright party several weeks early, for reasons that the person at the bar described, but requires like 3 years of like snippy, low nobility backstory to understand.
Right.
But you know that House Dravain is having this party, and that you can that makes a plausible cover. And that you're pretty sure you could talk the group's way into the party if you needed to.
Oh yeah, with this group, like we bring the party. That would be no trouble at all. So yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'll offer this to the group, but if you'd rather just go with a different cover story, it's not much to miss out on.
Seems reasonable to me. We can crash the party with care and then see what happens as we go there. All we have to do is be traveling there anyway. How long does this trip, by the way, usually take, Mike? Do we know? How long does it take to get out of, like, on the train out to this villa, wherever we're going?
So from where you are, you will take one of the kind of the more commuter lines and then transfer near the port. And then from there, going across the middle of the island, it's about an hour.
Okay. Oh, an hour. We'll have to move quickly. I had this image of this like Agatha Christie, like, more expense. It'll take several days, and we'll get to know all the characters intimately while we have meals with them in the dining car. No, this is like, let's go.
This is more like fantasy New York kind of train.
I got you. Well, if it's fantasy New York, I hope the same ticket is transferable and we don't have to buy a new one at the station, because I don't have to turnstile jump. Okay.
No, the Valloward Rail Association is in some, if not always, more sensible than MTA.
Very low bar, but it's fair enough. Okay. It seems reasonable. And so are these like, Darcie, when Mark shows us these things, are these like invitations that are really like fancy type of thing? Or do they look like the equivalent of like sort of you've whited out the names and like, I would like to have Zelfa, like go to this thing, you know what I mean? Like type of thing.
Oh, I'm going to say that. So I have my invitation, but underneath the name, I will have like elegantly with my calligraphy skills that I learned growing up. But yeah, I'm confident that we're so cool. I mean, we can get in that party. It's not going to be a problem.
All right, then I'll pack my dress armor. And I like go off to like, get my like fancy dress armor, which to be clear is still functional and not entirely ceremonial, but let's not get into any big brawls,
So it's the breastplate that only comes out for parties because it's too much of a hassle to polish.
You have no idea how long it takes to polish that. Yes, that is. Yep. Yes, the cloth is so dirty that it's just Yep. Sounds like a plan. And a dress sword, and all that. But we're allowed to have dress swords and dress weapons and all that, right? So, okay. All right. Well, we should do what we need to do, I suppose.
Yeah, and if we actually see a ghost, that's going to make a great story.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So the train cars on the Sunset Line, are basically the state of the art. This one has probably not been in service for more than 4 to 6 months, because the Rail Association is well funded and does a good job of making noise for itself so that they keep on getting funding. And there's a bit of like a patronage war between the different houses of like the Sunset Line brought to you by House Corinne. And so, some of the trains are like, they bear the colors of one or another of the houses. And this one that you're on bears the colors of House Vorster because you are, kind of the sponsors of the train line in general. And so what I would encourage you to imagine is like a New York subway car, but all of the metal is instead stone or wood. And there are cushioned seats that are mostly like the kind of rows against the end with a couple of like facing each other booths. We've got poles, and the openings to like board and unboard are less like, the kind of automatically closing doors of a subway, and are more like openings a la something like a San Francisco trolley car. And so getting on and off is not a question of like getting caught by the doors. It's more, is it moving? If it's moving and you're not on it, it's going to be a problem for you because a lot of these lines are like 60 feet up. And so there are some precautions to keep people from like falling to their terrible death, because that would be quite unsightly. But from a 21st century, like public transit safety perspective, it's not necessarily up to standards, because the technological, the magic technological capabilities are uneven, let's say. And if you're getting on in the early evening, or like early to mid evening, so that by the time this ghost would appear, you're in more or less the right place. This means that most of the people that are with you are also people who are headed for this party, and they're all pre-gaming.
Of course they are. Yep.
Grand.
So what car are we? Are we in like are we in the, I know that's all, covered cushions. Like, is this the fancier car? And relative to, say, the sort of lead car, the engine, where are we in comparison to that?
So I think it's engine, 1, 2, 3 passenger carriages.
Okay.
And then another 3 freight carriages.
Okay.
So the freight is all in the back. So when a train comes up to station, 1, 2, 3, those are what you can board on, and the freight is behind, so that the freight stations at the rail stops are attached to, but largely divided from the passenger section, right? There's kind of the freight and industrial section, and then there's a passenger section.
Is the no, the freight is all wine and cheese wheels for the party. Yes, it's all the freight is there for. So do we get into 1, 2, or 3? Do we have the choice? Can we pick?
You do.
All right. So when we just as we're about to get into this thing, I guess I would look around and say, do you want to be closer to the engine or closer to the back near the freight?
Freight.
Where do we get in?
I'd say freight.
I should look around. Like,
I trust your judgment. I'll take whichever option.
Yeah, Zelfa, you're right about that. You're right about so many things. I trust your judgment as well.
I gotta look at, tilt my head a little bit and look at Mark and right, yes. And then I kind of do the skeptical narrow look, and then I turn around and I'm like, all right, freight it is. And so we go into 3. How many people are on? You said they're pre-gaming. This thing packed, like with pre-gamers, or
It is not packed. So if you imagine Saturday 9 p.m. in a major city where a bunch of young people are going to a party, dial that back by about 40%.
Okay. Who?
this is having played some shows for people in this situation. I love everything about this. Also, dial it back and don't put it on St. Patty's Day. Just want to be clear about both those things. Okay.
I'm not that mean.
Yeah, no. All right. 40%. Do we, as I look around, is there a quick, can we get a sense of, like, if we were to break down, these are people going to the party, but mostly then not workers at the party, presumably like pre-gaming because they're actually attendees. Yes? Is that the theory?
So,
or do I need to?
It is very easy to identify
Okay.
that all of these people are at least presenting as young social dilettantes.
Okay.
So these are noble heirs, their entourages, aspirants, visitors from other countries who are trying to take in and develop social connections within Valloward.
Okay.
Like the class range that you're hitting is pretty tight. It's not the highest because the richest people don't travel to parties. The parties come to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of people who are in that kind of social climber category.
We recognize any of them?
Absolutely. Who are they?
Damn it. Well,
GM'd.
How the crumble cookies. I would assume that we would see, okay, let me pull up my faction thing here. So I would assume then that we would probably see from, let's say, the minor houses, because this is a minor house thing that we're going to. I'm guessing that we're going to see like, well, I mean, I don't know, okay, let me pitch this. Is it possible that we could see someone from a house that we are sort of surprised is showing up here? Like if there's a person from House Graymist, let's say, and we're kind of like, why is House Graymist going to doing this part? Why are they going to this thing? Can I pitch that as a possibility? Because I have this image of seeing someone that shouldn't be there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Jevly Graymist is at the far end of the car, and you probably didn't notice her right away because of the size of her entourage. But when somebody moves, you can tell that it's her because her dress is gigantic. The shoulders on her dress go out to here. It is like, take a Met Gala theme and then just run it through the fantasy filter.
Yes,
and run it through like
the
90s fantasy movie filter.
Wow.
Well, it's a good thing it's not a crowded train or anything like that.
Yeah, like the dress basically gives her personal bubble.
I had no idea this part was just, yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna ask, is the dress also like then I don't remember what they're actually called, but I imagine that the train of that dress is actually like literally physically structured, like there's something holding it. Like
Oh yeah, it's got like a hoop skirt. But the thing is, it's like incredibly broad shoulder, like was it what is it, ageless princess, childlike princess from Neverending Story, like high back collar kind of thing. But then it becomes like super like form fitting, so it's like gigantic hourglass dress as like a magnification of her figure. And there's like particular historical literary references in there that any of you could probably read if you were so inclined, and that was your sort of thing. But yes, it's quite a lot in a number of ways. And then she has a simply but nicely dressed lady's maid, a bored-looking guard who, Karevis, you do not recognize as a bravo, and then somebody else who seems fairly attentive, who any of you might guess would be something more like a balance between a handler and a like secretary.
I think I'd look at Mark and say, I had no idea we were going to something this this notable. This party of yours seems to be a big event. And I kind of, subtly kind of nod in the direction of the vision at the front of the train.
I would say, it's mid, but you tend to find that when there aren't many parties, people who like to party will go to just about anything.
Yeah, there isn't anything else major that's happening that is in any way, shape, or form like open. Sapphire might be having a hell of a party tonight, but it's probably like Sapphire only, more culty stuff. That's the reputation.
Yeah,
least,
it's happy
right?
hour somewhere. I get it. Okay. So I kind of just lean back and like, all right then. I suppose now we wait to be haunted.
Oh,
well,
after you.
well, Jinsia wants to look around, like,
Okay.
Graymist, are they known for their knacks particularly? I didn't think they were one of the ones that were, but I'm sure they have them, but.
Right. Any of the great houses will have at least one knack on staff. I'm just double checking. So Graymist's strengths are wealth and supply. So they are not especially known for their magic.
And just in general, what kind of background radiation, as it were, would Jinsia be getting because of the train itself? Can she see other magic on top of that, or would it be sort of wash it out?
Yeah, so there's the primary enchantment that is what if you could do maglev but with stone, where you have the stone of the train's base and then you have the stone of the tracks, where the track ahead pulls and the track behind pushes, and then the kind of the orientation flips as the train passes over it. So that's kind of a constant hum, where it's like it's the same thing, but it's also constantly changing at the same rate. As long as you're not turning or pulling into a station, that vibe is consistent. There are also some protective enchantments across all of the different entrances and windows. These are basically luck enchantments to keep people from like falling out. And then there's like, oh, okay, there's something in a box over there that has like an enchantment of cleaning. That's like what whatever the janitorial staff would use. And so there's a lot of magic being used here on this because it's like a high status thing, and the trains are really important overall. So you're able to pick out a bunch of different signatures, and a lot of these are familiar, but the one here is these are going to be among the most impressive versions of any of these. Jevli's dress absolutely has some magic in it. It is like it's a subtle, like basically attention holder, where some people, if you use stealth magic, it'd be like your eye just glosses over somebody. This is the opposite.
I think that actually, as far as you all observing her, like you'll have this sense of her like laser focus sort of like around the room a little bit as she's looking at things, and then she laser focuses on the dress. And she, I think, would probably know whatever sort of historical reference is being made there, and probably sort of mutter it, sort of like, I know Cleopatra, you are no Cleopatra," kind of like whatever she's going for there. And then she would probably like kind of under her breath also like really just like scoff, like,
So how subtle do you think Jensia is doing this?
Unless someone like punches her in the arm, she's not subtle.
Okay. So
I mean, there are people who might do that, but
because Zelfa would take this moment to just kind of nudge you, but not to stop you, to actually encourage you very, very strongly.
Oh, so like this?
It's like, you tell them that dress is tacky as fuck.
So if no one is stopping you from doing this, your attention falls to Jevely, and anyone else who's paying attention to the scene may get more of the subtleties of it. So this is maybe this could actually be any of the others. The secretary kind of is also keeping an eye on things, notices Jensia, like seems to either say something or make some kind of gesture, and then steps aside. And Jensia, your kind of stare of attention is met by Jevely across the way, and she does this with like a hello. But it's not "I got you." It's like, well, hi. And now you are in her. Now you have entered her attention.
I probably whisper to Jensia, like, "All right, you're on now."
I guess she is. She looks reluctant, but she will go over and sort of put this smile of welcome or hello on her face. Zelf, are you close enough that Jensia could like sort of be like, "Hey, world support wingwoman"?
Yeah, unfortunately, I am.
Can I just say that my character in the meantime is slipping on the slipping away to the other side of the car, so he doesn't get trapped up in whatever's about to happen.
You're not getting pulled into this.
Okay. Yes. No.
So Jevely is a character that I had already established in the game, but it's been a while and I don't recall the context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Rhiannon and Brandon, do you think either of your characters know who this is? Did somebody else in the group remind you of who this is?
I mean, I think I'm aware of Jevely. I don't think we've ever had cause to actually interact at any point before this. And it's not like our interaction is not hostile in the sense that our interaction with anybody else that we've met so far in this game is hostile. But I do suspect that there is some level of tension, very obviously, between House Graymist and our performance as Erendrenas for our house, such that even if Jevely doesn't know that tension exists, that tension probably exists between us and everybody else that is present.
Okay. And it sounded like you were presenting as people associated with Vorster, but not necessarily specifically yourselves. Is it?
Yeah, kinda. I think we're just like young Vorster socialites going to a party.
Okay.
Maybe more like astute members among those in this car might be able to tell us apart, but they'd have to not be drunk first. So that's one hurdle.
So almost as if you are a cohort of socialites, whereas you have the expert, you have like one terrifying socialite that the retinue kind of can request things of. Instead, you're like a group. Is that the vibe that you're going for?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it's absolutely in character that you would know of Jevly. And so as the two of you come over, Jevly's entourage like parts, and as you approach, you see that she's a woman of like 25 years, pale with cool undertones. Her makeup is just up to 12, and like the painting is a form of like makeup is shape shifting, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff, and she's absolutely using like magically enhanced cosmetics, which is not something that working class people can afford. But she's a scion of nobility. She's the third daughter of the princept of Graymist, and they are at the top of the heap right now. And her hair, she's got like what if victory rolls, but then also like just the most cool severe wavy hair. So like it's doing several things at once in a very avant-garde kind of fashion, because that's the note that I have on her, is that she's like bleeding edge fashion scion. And as you walk over, she says, "Are you heading to the Dravains as well? I didn't know that anyone from Vorster was going to be coming."
Of course. We heard that it's going to be quite a soiree, and we thought that it would be lovely for us to finally venture out into the West and see what that looks like.
Well, that is very good for you. I honestly didn't think that Vorster had them in them. You've got a bit of a stuffy reputation, you know.
I give one of those like very stuffy princess laughs. And I'm like I'm covering my mouth with my hand as I do it, just so Jensia can see me like very obviously grimace, and then I just bring my hand back down.
Yeah, and so after that, Jevly extends a hand with her Graymist signet ring for either of you to, the range of acceptable things are kiss, air kiss, like, and then or like bow to nod to it, depending on your preference and whatever gender presentation associations you make with any of those things.
I mean, Jency would be happy to like field this one so that Zelfa doesn't have to. And she would just please do the the air kiss, and say something like, across the car, I saw your dress. It astonished me, and now I'm closer, and it's even more amazing.
Very nice. So because she is a tier 5, she's a character who's part of a tier 5 group, she is going to take over your entire trip unless you do something about it. And so this is me deploying a consequence, which is you are going to be socially pinned unless you do something about this. So how do you manage having fallen into the social Venus flytrap of Jevly's attention?
How do you go for it, if you will?
What do you do about a problem like Jevly?
It's like how do you walk away from Marie Antoinette?
Well, so Jensia has an idea, but it would be falling back on her knackishness. Okay. And Vorster doesn't have many knacks. So that would be like sort of shouting who we are. I
think that is a very astute analysis.
So I feel like she would think that like we shouldn't do that, but also we shouldn't let ourselves get pinned down.
Now, you do have some opportunity to perhaps get some intel from her, but dueling socially with her is going to be quite difficult because of the status that she brings. So when we make a roll and the person that is opposing you is a substantially higher tier, you're going to start out with much lesser effect. It's hard to gain ground socially against someone who has that much of an advantage. So there is an opportunity, but it would be quite difficult. If you were to target other people in her retinue, that might be easier because they don't have their status is all at 1 degree of remove. So that is an option for you. But this is like a scene scale framing that over the next 20, 30 minutes, are you going to be caught in her gravity? Are you going to do something while you're there? Are you going to try to extricate yourself before she can talk at you so much that you cannot help but give things away by how you react?
So while this is happening, I actually do want to see if this is an opportunity where I can subtly gain some information.
Sure.
Which is, I want to know if we can tell, like, however curiously, whether anyone else in Jevli's present entourage is on this train looking for the ghost as well.
Okay.
Either for business or pleasure.
Yeah. What action are you using to try to discern this?
I think it very obviously has to be study.
I think study makes I think you'll get the best results from study, but study also is going to be easier for them to realize that you're trying to get something out of this. Survey is better for snap judgment, but it doesn't go as deep.
Aha. Okay, cool. I'm fine with study because I know what I'm going to do about the consequences.
Okay.
What is my position?
This is going to be just a study will be risky because it's not as like oppositional as if you're trying to like sway her to try to, convince her of something. So this is going to be risky, limited. Because of tier.
Okay. I will push myself for one extra die.
Okay. And you want a bonus die rather than effect? Or do you have something else that will impact effect?
Effect is better, yes. I only have 1 dot in study, but effect is better.
Okay. Someone could assist you either because you discussed on the way over that you wanted to try to get some information out of something, or because Gensia, you have picked up on what Zelfa is trying to do. And then
Definitely.
For Karevis and for Mark, if you want to impact this scene, you are welcome to do so. I don't want to exclude you, but if you want to stay out of the blast zone, I understand.
No, I'm out of the blast zone for the moment.
I am as well. It's up to you two. Good luck.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm Aragorn in the back of the prancing pony, just watching the play out.
So just to be sure, is Gensia going to assist?
Yes. And
Okay,
that's stress for me. Is that correct?
1 stress, yes.
1 stress. Okay.
All right, so I'll take that as a bonus die. And roll. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
6 out of 3. Whew.
And you pushed for effect, right?
Yes, but
Okay,
I didn't adjust the effect in the thing.
So that should be standard.
Yeah.
Okay. On a 6, you're going to get 1 good answer and a follow-up. So what question do you want answered based on the behavior or anything that her entourage says?
Do I get the impression that any member of her entourage is also here to observe the ghost, either out of professional duty or personal curiosity?
So her bodyguard, who is probably a little bit older than Jevli and has kind of light scruff, short, somewhat curly hair, a little bit of like charmingly bland smile. And he's just wearing a fairly nice but not ostentatious doublet, Pluderhosen type thing, so like puffy pants and then tights with shoes that he can move in, and he's got a fairly basic rapier on his hilt, and he's doing the like cool swordsman thing of you rest your wrist on the pommel nut, or like on the pommel bolt at the bottom of the rapier. So he's ready to draw if he really needs to, but mostly it's there to make it so that the rapier doesn't like bonk into things. They say, having been in the SCA for a number of years and knowing what it is to wear a rapier on a belt, like if you don't do a counterbalance or you don't have it strung up properly, it's just going to hang like this and then clonk into things. Mm-hmm. So that's that. He's absolutely looking out for something weird. And only because you're very good do you notice, because he gives about this much away. Every 30 to 60 seconds you get just the tiniest motion of the eyes, and it's like stretching the bounds of how far do I have to move my eye to then see something in my peripheral vision right here, right? Like my peripheral vision ends here, and so he's looking like that. And he's not looking around the way that Karevis looks around when Karevis is looking out for problems. There's another dimension to this. And you get a follow-up.
Okay, cool. So I can use this follow-up to gain one very useful piece of immediate ghost information, or I can do this stupid thing that I know that Zelfa would do, which is does this bodyguard seem to have what I would describe as Queen's Guard demeanor? That is, if I were to attempt to seduce him, do I believe that he would actually respond?
That's a good question. He has not checked you out, but he's not giving ascetic. So the question is, how good are you at that?
The answer to the question is bad, but I really do want to get information from somebody who knew about the ghost before we got here. So I as he is gazing about the place in a moment when I can actually meet his gaze, I give what I hope is the most intensely coquettish stare that I can muster.
Okay, we're doing this. So if you want to actually get some kind of sustained reaction or attention, this will also take a roll. But before we get there, because Gensia was helping Zelfa with this, you're probably not in a position to be able to get your own roll right now, but the conversation does play out. And so what I'm curious about is, for Zelfa and Gensia, what would Jevli read from your outfit? Either things that you've intentionally put in, or things that she might be able to realize that you hadn't intended, because these clothes may or may not be your normal clothes versus clothes that you have borrowed from someone else at the house. So what does she get as a expert social operator whose focus is fashion?
Interesting.
Because Zelfa does think a lot about also signifying things through clothing, and because I imagine that's one of the few areas of like deep local history that Jevli would still be able to pick out. I imagine that there is still obviously something uniquely Dialta about my outfit, that even if Jevli doesn't know everything about it, she still obviously knows something interesting about it. And the thing that I think it is I think I'm wearing like a dark green velvet suit, um, where there are like these like deeply set sequins, like so deeply set that you can barely notice them except when they catch light,
Mhm.
that are like drawing out the shape of um essentially like one of the old rivers that used to run through this island before a lot of the overwhelming physical calamity changed the physical shape of the island.
Okay.
um and it's running almost like a sash from the left shoulder to the right waist.
Okay, cool. And what is she reading off of Jensia's outfit, and or like whole situation?
So Jinxia has sort of, it's her own gown, and she wears it to all the parties. And she has clearly, with some knowledge, gone for the sort of like timeless fashion where it's not matronly, but it's very expensive and you buy it once and then it stays in fashion for a while. It's decent. It's not sort of up to the moment, but it's also not dowdy or dowdy made over. It's just
Right.
something that's pretty basic, really expensive materials, sort of sober, dark colors, so that like it's a little bit, I wouldn't say matronly, but it's a little bit sort of older.
Mhm.
And so that her, except for the one false note, which is there for Jevly to read, which is her fingerless gloves,
Mm.
which she's wearing. And those are a little bit more sort of like the latest fashion.
Okay.
So it's not quite, it doesn't fit quite the ensemble
Sure.
because normally she wouldn't be wearing gloves with her gown
Yeah.
style. So
And so while Jensia, while Zelfa is kind of subtly studying the bodyguard and the other members of the entourage, Jevly is fascinated by your gloves, and she asks, like, "Oh, did you get these from insert name of the person that you bought them from?" And like she's excited about them. She thinks that they're very interesting. It of course doesn't fit with my outfit for tonight because of the shapes and the scale, and I'm quite fond of and she shows off the manicure, and then she says, "But I have to wonder, is that dress your sister's?"
Wow.
uh, well, what makes you say that?
Well, it's fine, but the woman who chooses to attend so smartly to what is happening in the world of gloves and the language of hand signals, it's a very uninspired choice to go with an admittedly classic, but and I don't mean this as any kind of offense, boring style. We are Valloward, my dear. We must aspire to greater and more.
I wish I could hear this because at this point I'd be doing the other part of Aragorn, which is where he sits forward in his chair, right? Like it's just listening, like, hearing this, but I think probably not hearing enough of this. I'm just kind of like,
And time is passing. We get to another station. This is like this station is mostly used for freight because you're kind of out in the less developed part of the island. But as stuff, as there is a stop, some people get off, like go and get some water, or like there's people like there are people selling food here even at this time of night, and it's probably like the teenage kids of one of the ranching families who's like, it's Saturday night, you're gonna get up, you're gonna go up there and you're gonna sell pastries. And so like there's stuff going on, and so there's a bit of reconfiguration of people within the train car, and so some of the kind of social pieces move around a bit, which Mark exposes your position, and you have to reposition you have to kind of make an adjustment somewhere. And the people near you are just being like loud and obnoxious. And this guy over here, either pre-gamed before the pre-gaming or cannot hold his wine, and is a bit sloppy. It's not a problem in terms of like capital P problem yet, but it is annoying. And Karevis, somebody wants to talk to you about sword fighting, and is effectively a not very informed fencing fanboy. And so he knows enough to get things wrong when asking Karevis, like, because if you brought your sword for show, that is a little bit of a giveaway. And so he's a little bit like, where did you get that sword? Like, this is clearly a Closentia. And like, I don't know, Closentia are usually, those are mostly, and it's just like, it's a little bit gatekeeper at a comic shop, but about your sword.
And also wrong, like a bad gatekeeper also. Do I get a read on this person's this is one of the kids basically, right, who got on and did this essentially? One of
the socialite kids.
Okay.
His color indicate the colors he's wearing indicate an association with House Sapphire, but you do not get a sense that he has any status within that house.
I see. So because I probably brought, I imagine, I didn't bring my dread blade for this because it'd be a little ridiculous. So I brought a courtly blade, a fine courtly blade, and I would say, so I'd kind of, one has his ways of getting things that are needed. I thought that this was appropriate for the circumstances and the occasion. It's important to have a sword that not only looks good but is easy to remove from the sheath when necessary. I like to make sure my swords are used. And my eyes kind of flicker down to what I'm going to pray is a clearly, I just got this from Bob's Army Navy discount store version, right? Like, the thing, right? That still has the binding around it, like maybe still shrunk wrap.
So if there was an REI of bladesmithing, he has a too long for his build rapier. There is a longer handle is in fashion among some bravos for a blade that is a little bit in a transitional form between a more thrusting oriented rapier and a more of a traditional cut and thrust blade. Like, that's come back into fashion. But it's all wrong for his build.
Can I ask, can I hear any of this going on?
Absolutely.
Since we're both out of the blast. All right. So I was just going to say, throughout this short amount of time that's passed, my character brought a picnic basket full of bottles of wine and has been handing it out to people. Wow. Not getting drunk himself, but definitely enabling the party on the train, the pre-party. But this guy is getting annoying next to me. So when I hear this going on, I think that Mark is going to cover his mouth like this and say, "Oh, those two are going to spar!" Like, just like try to get the momentum going for maybe some sparring on the train.
Oh wow!
So I kind of like, again, give this skeptical look up at Mark, and I'm like,
it's someone else said it. I'm just looking around like this. And I'm
like
kind of point to the drunk guy.
Right. So I kind of like, my eyes just sort of like slide to them, and I look back at the other one, and I'd say, I'm not sure that you'd have enough room to draw your sword in the train. It probably would be, the train's too narrow to contain it. I kind of indicate the blade
Well, I mean, if you're not comfortable fighting on the piste, if you're just a rounder, then I suppose we can wait. And once we get to the party, we can find like a garden. And I'd be really curious to see how you handle that thing.
Certainly, it seems like a appropriate way to do it. We wouldn't want to cause any damage with your shish kebab there.
Is he too drunk to realize he's just been insulted? Good question.
He's gotta be. I know people like this.
I'm gonna make a fortune roll. So I'm gonna roll 1d6.
Okay. I was gonna say,
this guy needs a 6 to know that he has been insulted, because I think he's that drunk. No. He's like, oh yeah, of course, Master Shish Kebab. I think I read one of his manuals.
And
so he's just like face planted into your insult.
I nod very. Are there a few people around that are listening in on this, besides Mark?
One of the people in his party kind of just turns their head and does this.
I nod very slowly. I'm like, it's a wonderful book. And I kind of, at this point, I look up at Mark and I raise an eyebrow, and I say, so, when you're not busy training, what have you heard about this train that we're on? I've heard that it's can get quite lively at times.
And not this fellow. What's the shittiest Italian dude name we can come up with?
Mario. Super. I'm sorry. Please don't demonetize me, Nintendo. I'm so sorry.
Trippity Maps. Giovanni wins the play.
Silencio Bruno.
Oh my god.
That's very good original.
That's very good.
So yeah, Giovanni is this gatekeepy kid.
You don't talk about
but somebody in his party, in fact, the person who kind of turned away at the cell phone says under her breath, well, of course, the train is haunted.
And so I kind of oh, well, one hears rumors, but I mean, certainly the rumors of people perhaps being a little, and I kind of nudge a slight elbow, a little bit too filled with enjoyment of the evening. They may have rumors of this haunting, yes?
Yeah. And it's at that point that the lights on the train car flicker out, and a glowing blue form of a middle-aged man appears not 3 feet from you, just holding on to one of the poles. And Giovanni screams and is going to fall out the side, and we'll go to break.
Okay. Tough luck, Giovanni. It was fun.
Poor Giovanni.
So this has been Court of Blades Valloward. I did not expect this much train hijinks, but I'm loving it. So we're gonna follow what works. We are gonna take a break, probably about 10 minutes, if that sounds all right, Arv.
Sounds fine.
So that the cast can refresh ourselves, get up, move around, whatever we need to do. A reminder that a break for us is a break for you. So we encourage you to do what will let you be kind of mentally and physically present as much as you would like to be, to enjoy the rest of this adventure with us as we tell a Valloward ghost story. So that is use the restroom, drink water, some other kind of beverage that's good for you or not so good for you. I'm not your dad. And then join us back in about 10 minutes for more of Valloward.
Back soon. Bye all. right. So we are back and ready to deal with ghosts. I have listened to Ghostbusters themes over the course of the break. I have also listened to such notable songs as Through the Ghost by Shinedown. I'm sure everybody knows exactly what that is. So we're ready to go, and I can firmly say that we are not afraid of no ghost. So I think we're all fine. And back over to Mike to tell us how I'm totally wrong about that.
All right. So when we last left our coterie, they had broken up into a few subsections. Zelfa and Gensia are currently somewhat trapped in the social gravity well of Jevli Graymist over on the far side of the train car on the Sunset Line, headed out to the villas in the kind of central, west central part of the Isle of Valloward. Meanwhile, Crevice, unfortunately, was set upon by a gatekeeping fencing bro who does not, in fact, know what he's talking about. And Marcello is keeping an eye on everything, ? And avoiding said bro. When the lights on the train car had all gone out, these are like magically maintained lights, and a like ghostly blue figure of a middle-aged man in kind of like nice workers' clothes had appeared, and he's just like on the train, like hanging, like holding on to like one of the kind of hanging gymnastics loops type things. But the sudden appearance of a ghost and the loss of the lights is quite startling to a number of people, and so some folks have some fallen over. So there's some gasping and some shouting of surprise, and poor Giovanni, the quite inebriated fencing gatekeeper bro that was like somewhat accosting, not physically accosting, but definitely being an annoying presence to one Karevis, has been startled so much that he is about to fall out of the train and fall a good 60 feet something down, to his likely death, given how discombobulated he already is. And so what I'm curious about is, anybody going to do anything about this?
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell you're hesitating.
Yeah. If I had a long time to just be like montage thinking of like how many bros do I want to save in one evening. Yeah, I mean, like if this is, of course, I don't. If somebody else is closer, certainly they can. But if I'm like, I assume that I was closest, but I mean, but I will save if no one else is, there.
So you are absolutely within reach to do a save. I would say, Darcie, if you want Mark to have conveniently been in the right place to do something about it, you're welcome to do that as well. That's a question for you and Greg to sort through. Who wants to do the unfortunate business of saving a person who's being a prat?
Well, there's no time to like flip a coin about this. Maybe they both simultaneously like grab on either arm.
Okay. Yeah. So, he's got like the full sleeves because it's evening. And he's, because when you drink and you're wearing warm clothes, that goes perfectly fine, right? Because as we know, in Western Europe during this part of the Renaissance, there was a mini ice age. And so that type of clothing absolutely works really well for a magical equivalent of the Caribbean in early summer. This guy's choices are just great top to bottom.
Spectacular. Yeah.
So yeah,
okay.
you're able to reach out and grab him. That's one each, grab a hand, grab a shoulder. You can decide which one that is. That is not going to take a roll. What I think becomes immediately more of a challenge is the fact that as the lights flicker on, there is a small but not insignificant stampede as people are trying to get out of this car and head up to passenger car number 2.
So having saved clown shoes here. Do we have like the up at the front? I know that probably the gravity well basically has their backs turned to us, but are they part of the stampede? And the reason why is the person that I want to go like check with quickly would be Gensia. Like I want to know exactly what Gensia is thinking and feeling and reacting to, and like all of this now that we've seen this, alleged ghost that may or may not be a ghost.
So perhaps surprisingly, Jevli and her people are not bothered.
Interesting.
All
whether
right.
you might think that is because they are not scared, or because they already knew to expect this, or something else. The Exodus is moving around them.
Okay, well then I guess what I would do is I would wait for the Exodus to pass while Giovanni is, presumably moaning about his recent escape in a seat. And then I think I also would probably like direct, maybe Mark and I could like direct him into the Exodus. Just like, this is a terrible time for you. You need to like, here, go and just push him into the river current.
Yeah, just shove him. They'll carry him along.
And wait basically till those are all out. And at that point, sort of I would look at Mark and say, I think it's time we go speak to our neck about what we just saw. Yes?
I agree. But so the ghost is just there. He's still there, right?
Yeah, he does not seem to be interacting with anybody else. He's just there's a ghost now on the train.
I thought he left.
Just hanging out because he's taking the train.
So if I wave my hand in front of his face, does anything happen?
No, he's
all right.
He does not seem to be taking in input from what's going on around him.
So Mark is not the bravest when it comes to the supernatural, but it does seem odd that this ghost isn't like screaming or menacing or anything, and agreeing that they should move up to rejoin as they're walking past the ghost. He would do this, and nothing happens. That's just something to note.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. So when we get up, I would I suppose I would as politely as possible with some speed, do a little bit of bowing to Jevli Graymist, and I apologize for disrupting in any way the no doubt delightful conversation that we were having. I did note a new arrival onto our train, and I kind of sort of gesture rather clearly to the ghost while my eyes are flickering back and forth from Jevli to make sure I'm doing just enough to sort of make it clear that I'm not being super rude, and maybe also to see whether Jevli's going to do some ridiculous tell, like just like, that was mine, I know that's not going to happen, but mostly looking also at Gensia, because I'm kind of like, what is this, type of thing.
So when the lights went out, Gensia's absolute like instant reaction would be, I think she probably has like a ring or something that she usually casts light on, and it would be covered by her gloves. So she would like light it up and then be like, well, shit, and then pull the glove off. So when the lights come back on, like she would dismiss it, but now she's like one bare hand that used to have light on it. So that is presumably fairly noticeable. And she would have also sort of like, when under the cover of darkness, since she had a light, she was going to like stand up to like go towards the ghost. So I imagine, depending on how much time there was, she's probably still on her feet, but sort of like, wait, now I can't escape.
Yeah, so you made it a few steps toward the ghost while people were flailing and didn't have the light to be able to get out. So you can return to your social group if you want, but you've a little bit played your hand. Or what I should say that's funnier is you've a little bit showed your hand in removing the glove and utilizing the ring. But since Gensia has an ability that's about sensing the supernatural, Rhiannon, I want to offer you the opportunity to make some kind of analysis roll here, if you would like.
Heck yeah. So can I do channel, or would it be study or something like that?
So if it's channel, what techniques or powers are you using to gather information?
So channel, there would be sort of two different ways she could go about it. If she waits to get up to touch him, then I would say that she would like just put her hand straight in and sort of
Okay.
use that to get like direct information. If she's sort of stuck socially, she does have her like in the sort of old style of pockets where you have a slit in the dress and then there's like a different pocket inside. She's going to have all of her stuff in there.
Sure.
And so she would have some sort of like thing she could throw to sort of light it up or something like that. But what she really wants to do is just like touch it.
Okay. Yeah, you can cross. I'm curious, and this is to Rhiannon, but to folks more broadly. How bad of an idea do we think it is to touch a ghost? Is it not a thing? Is it kind of a bad idea? Is it a very bad idea? In Blades in the Dark, touching a ghost is a very bad idea. But this is not Blades in the Dark.
I mean, we just beat the hell out of a revenant, right? I mean, like, so
Yeah, but that's a zombie. That's the body. The ghost is essentially a pure spirit. That might be a completely different matter.
So thinking about it, maybe I'll modify, because I think that you could say that it's a really bad idea to directly touch, but like a hot stove, like the closer you do get a sense like of how bad
Absolutely.
an idea it is.
Yeah.
So I think her goal then would be to like not impact it, but like start getting close to get data about that, like a hot stove.
Sure. So with channel, I think this is going to be a risky standard roll.
Okay.
And the cruel part of me is hoping for some kind of consequence, because then I get to do wacky ghost stuff.
And I have the open mind. Would that apply for the bonus die in this situation?
So with that, so you take +1d on your next action roll when acting on knowledge about the arcane.
Okay, so I don't really have that knowledge yet, do I?
Right. So when you make this roll, then you'll get a +1d on whatever your next thing is that uses whatever you're going to get here. And because this is about gathering information, you will get at least some information. Well, that's a critical.
Let's go.
Okay, wow.
I think what you meant to say, Mike, was you're going to get to do wacky Gensia stuff, not ghost stuff. Gensia stuff.
Yeah. So
the ghost loses. I just want to be clear.
You reach out, and there's a kind of a gentle jostling of the train, and between the jostling and an unexpected movement, he ends up touching you, but you have the precautions laid in, because if you are going to put your hand out to a stove and you have a mitten, like, you're going to have the mitten on hand. And so magically you're able to ground yourself so that you don't get basically vacuumed into the world of spirit, which might happen if you touch a ghost without protections. But what instead you get is you are pulled just to the edge of that divide, and the world around you comes to a stop, and you are treated to effectively a private vision that you would probably interpret as, what if a player in an opera or in like a commedia dell'arte was quickly jumping between scenes. So this ghost is here, then you see them sitting on one of the chairs that is occupied, but they're not actually interacting with the person that's there. You're just seeing some kind of moment. What you see after that is them farther down the train car toward where Jevli and that group is, and he's like backing away, looking at something that is scary, and the last thing that you get is his spirit being sheared from his body and the body disintegrating into dust. That's not how normally things happen. That's not what happens when you kill a guy.
No, it's not. So, Brevis, you said you were closely monitoring Jensia's reaction.
Yeah.
I believe, like, when she found the evidence of the necromancer, she kind of like shrieked. This is more sort of the like swallowed shriek, like you're sort of half in a dream and your sort of muscles aren't quite working right yet. But clearly she's like, God, what just happened? Ah!
Do I sense that Jensia had, I mean, I've seen Jensia go through it before. Do I, encounters? I guess from this reaction, it's pretty clear to me that this must obviously, in fact, be a ghost and not someone with, neon paint. So can I assume then, looking at Jensia, does Jensia look to be in dangerous distress? Like, I mean, am I able to sense that because of this close regard? I don't know whether that's a question for Rhiannon or for you, Mike. Like, I don't know.
I think for Karevis, it probably looks more like Jensia was just treated, or Jensia just had a private viewing of someone executing a fencing technique that was thought to be lost to time. Like awe at the impossible.
Okay. So, and I'm monitoring it. Is anyone else obviously monitoring it?
I think
PCs or NPCs?
Yeah, like Jevly and her like secretary are looking, Jevly more agape than the secretary, at Jensia, who's, approaching this otherworldly figure. Like, so Jevly's it's for Jevly, it's more like it's a fascination, but in like, oh, this is a bad idea, but I can't tear my eyes away. And the secretary is a little bit more level gazed.
What is the security guy doing?
Good question.
Because Mark be looking at those three.
So he has stepped forward to be closest to this ghost of that group, but seems to be at least as much concerned about the other people that are still in this train car, which is the four of you plus like 3 or 4 other people who are either more afraid and frozen in place, or that poor sap who's already kind of passed out.
So can I say something, or is
Yeah,
it all
please.
happening really quick? So like my character tends to pretend to know less than he knows in order to achieve certain things. So he's going to say to the security guard, "That's not real. Don't worry, it's a party stunt." And just kind of see what kind of reaction comes out of him.
Okay. How hard are you selling this?
All right, let me try to sell it really hard. I'm going to pretend to be drunk, but I've never, as Darcie, I've never drunk before, so I don't know what that's like.
I guess the acting tip that I've heard may also not be useful, which is the don't act like you're drunk, act like you're somebody who's acting like they're sober.
Yes, act like you're pretending to be sober is an excellent way to approach it. As someone who has also never been drunk, but been around a lot of people that are.
I'll be loud and obnoxious too. It's like there tends to be a lot of those on the train at the moment. So he's like, "That's not real. That's a party trick."
I think if you want to sell this to him, this is going to take a roll.
All right, let's
because
do it.
he's fairly unimpressed at this whole situation.
While this is happening, by the way, just a quick note, I'm also trying to get Zelfa's attention a little bit, like sort of I kind of being like sort of looking at Zelfa and then looking meaningfully at Jensia, and so you can go on to the roll.
We'll jump to that after this roll here. So What action do you think this is, Darcie?
Well, it could be sway if it's guile.
Yeah, I
But-
think sway to me seems like it would be more effective than consort because you are putting something on, like you're putting something over on him.
All right, let me give that a
So
go.
if you roll this as sway, this is going to be risky standard as well.
Ooh, let's see.
Okay. So on a 5, what you get is like I can't do the raise only one eyebrow quite as cool as any version of Spock can. But this guy actually does a pretty good job of like,
Let me try.
just this part of the eyebrow comes up a little bit more than the other one, and says, well, if you believe that, you're welcome to go and introduce yourself and shake hands.
You first.
And what I'm going to say the consequence is that he may believe that you believe this, but he also is going to start to believe that there is something off about you and not in the way that you're trying to convey.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And so that's going to be a 4 o'clock of
the clock. I knew it.
of bodyguard alert.
Uh-oh.
And if this clock fills, he is going to know that you are more than you're letting on.
Some shenanigans.
Okay. Cool.
So this is going to be, I'm going to put 2 ticks on that clock. It is a consequence. You can resist if you wanted. So when you try to resist, or when you resist a consequence, you just say, I resist it. And if it's something that's big enough that I don't think you can resist all of it once, I tell you, this is something you could resist all of. But when you resist, you either have to use a special ability or special armor, or you roll the attribute that governs the action that you were just using. So that for you would be spirit. Or you could use your special armor, resist a complication related to detection or security against you or your coterie.
And what would be the downfall of a resistance failing?
So resistance rolls never fail.
Okay.
The thing about a resistance roll is it's a question of how much does it cost you. You have 9 stress, and if you spend the 9th stress, you are out of the scene. You've kind of overextended yourself. When you make a resistance roll, you're going to roll a couple. For you, it's going to be 2 dice because you have 2 different actions in spirit that are a 1 or more. So if you look at spirit and you look vertically in that first column, you have 2 things filled up. So you'd roll 2 dice, take your highest, and you spend stress equal to 6 minus your highest die to do that resist. So if you get a 6, it's free. Okay. But if you roll a 1 and a 3, 6 minus 3, it costs you 3 stress to do this. And you spend stress on other stuff as well.
I think for now, I'm gonna leave it because Mark gets the feeling that with their very clever friend seeming to have a moment connecting with the ghost, their cover's not going to last for too much longer.
Okay. So yeah, that exchange happens very quickly, right? It's just a couple of moments, the words back and forth as we described. You put on a good performance, but are already getting the sense that there's more, like that he's paying close enough attention that you're not going to be able to talk him in circles,
right? Unless
you are able to take a different attack or something like that, because it's not working as well as you want it to. Karevis, you were trying to get Zelfa's attention.
Yeah, just for long enough to be like, kind of quietly pull Zelfa to the side and be like, we need to take a moment to speak to Jensia once she comes out of this trance.
Because as soon as Jensia interacted with the ghost, I would have immediately diverted my attention. So I have been very closely monitoring that scene. Just as a kind of flashback, Jensia, do you believe I've ever seen you in this mode before? Like, have I ever seen you fully entranced by a magical event in this way before?
Well, so when we found the residue of the necromancer around
Oh,
the
yeah.
revenant's sarcophagus, I think that was probably the closest sort of thing where she was like super focused on she put out like dust or something and like the residue getting information back from that. And that was a little shorter in time because that was very much sort of like she blew it out, she got the result, she like reacted to the result. This seeing the vision, like being deep down in the magic, probably you haven't seen her be that long, just sort of like sunk in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the moment, I think I'm just like very closely observing, hoping to possibly see whether there is a moment when I should intervene. But for the moment, I'm gonna trust Jensia.
And you know, a bunch of things are happening at once, and Jevli calls out to Jensia, or I will ask first, did Jensia give a name in conversation with Jevli where you would have been talking for 10, 15 minutes by the time the ghost showed up?
Yeah, I imagine she did.
Okay. So she calls out to you by whatever name you gave, probably not your own because
well, she does have sisters, so she'll give one of her sisters' name.
Right. Let's see. Do you have a name on hand, or shall I come up with one?
Go ahead.
Allegra, dear, come back from there. You don't want to. There's no good to be had from any of that.
She does not answer to that name, so.
All right, and so like, Jevli's a little bit frustrated that people aren't doing exactly what she says right away. But there is time for other people to act. You know, there's still a ghost right there. Oh, now it's sitting over on that bench, 3 seats down from the person who's fallen asleep. And, you know, this is just like a kind of middle-aged, a pale dude with a, you know, worn but decent doublet and kind of circular glasses, mostly bald, a little bit of scruff.
It's taking no notice of us at all, right? Like
no, just like kind of the only real difference between him and any given like laborer on the train is the fact that you can see through him and he's blue and he's not reacting to you. So there's a few things that are different, but not as much as you might expect.
I might take a risk then and sort of after a minute kind of go up and kind of whisper, Jensia, we need to speak to you. Come out of it.
Well, I imagine by that, so the vision is done, right?
The vision has ceased, and so because you got a critical, this is not like, oh, you're stuck in the vision. You got way more information than you were expecting, but not in a way that like creates an ongoing problem for you.
Sure, okay. I imagine she still sort of like flinches physically, sort of like drawing the hand back and then like sort of like holding it, and then she's going to wheel around to at the back of the car, or the front of the car, I guess, where the ghost was reacting to something that he looked scared of it.
Sure.
She is going to wheel around to that direction. And so I suppose that makes it look like she's looking at Jevli, right?
Let's see.
It was down the same end, or?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. And then she's gonna sort of like, okay, collect her thoughts and then speak to Crevice. And start at sort of like normal volume and then come down to a whisper. So I imagine the other people in the car would get some kind of like I don't know how but they killed him. I don't know how. And then she's gonna like take the voice down.
Right.
As you start like being this intense, and she's gonna like rush towards you and take both of your hands to try to focus you.
So then like sort of voice pitch to keep it among us. She's gonna be I think she wouldn't tell the whole vision. I think that she's gonna sort of extract the important, what to her was important. He was scared of something over there, and then he disintegrated and he was wrenched apart. I don't know how, but that's not important. There was something there he was afraid of, and I don't know if it was symbolic, if I wasn't seeing it, or if it was somehow Graymist. But and I don't know how they could have even done that to him.
So that is perhaps the thing that sticks in your mind the most. And I'm curious how well Gensia knows magical weapons from other parts of the world.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, man.
Well, so at the university library, I think that would be her source for anything like that. So I imagine that there would be some kind of like travel logs full of mistakes.
Yeah. So you are, so I'm going to invoke a GM flashback, which is a thing that I do sometimes. And I'm going to say years ago. And so this is like a notably younger Gensia, like long nights at a different library, maybe than this one, but one with a lot of resources. You are, there's like three or so different books stacked, and they're all open to different pages. And there's two different accounts that share a reference to something known as an Oblivion blade. And one of them is like a third-hand story related by a sailor. And another one is an incomplete account of a traveler to Seven Eye. Seven Eye being a kind of world power that had been very insular for a long, long time, for centuries. And just in the past 10 years has decided, okay, we're going to be in the world now. There used to be one place where you could kind of trade with Seven Eye, and the people mostly kept to themselves, but have now kind of been interacting with the world and are making big moves at like becoming a power, because they just have a lot of resources and they have a lot of things that other parts of the world don't have. And so they're in a really good trade position. And the Oblivion Blade is associated with Seven Eye magical traditions. And what it does is it disintegrates the physical form. And the account that you remember talked about leaving the spirit disoriented. And it strikes you, as we pop back to the present moment, that there's a very good chance that that is what killed this person.
So having heard Gensia say what she said, I think I might be inclined to say, do you know when this happened? Is this recent?
Do I have a sense? You can look at the guy and see if his clothes are modern, right? So
yeah, in the because you got a critical, and you have that kind of very strong magical sense, in the vision, somebody had a broadsheet from 2 months ago.
Okay.
That was new at the time.
Tremendous.
So she'll sort of like be speaking in disconnected phrases. So you'll out of her you'll get 2 months. Oblivion Blade, Seven Eye, Oblivion Blade.
Would we have heard of Oblivion
sort of
Blade, by the way, Mike? I know Gensia did. Would we have heard of it?
I think for Karevis, it's a fairy tale. the stories tell of a seven-eyed swordsman who who cut down his opponent and struck them from reality itself. It's like it's like in the category of a Vorpal blade.
Yeah.
But not something that like is commonly accepted as a thing that exists.
Except that I've just seen Gensia's reaction, and I do respect Gensia. So all of a sudden, I'm reconciling, like, the Jolly Green Giant does exist. Like, so that's it. Okay, so, and also, if I know this fairy tale and the seven-eyed swordsman, I assume this was something that would only have been a fairy tale from relating to the wealthiest of families and the most powerful of houses, because they don't just throw around things like oblivion blades. You know what I'm saying, right? Is that like
an oblivion blade would be a tier 4 or 5 asset if you got your hands on one. They are regarded by most as either not existing or being semi-mythical. But if it's real, as you would be easily led to believe based on the train of logic that you've laid out, it would be quite a thing to get your hands on one of those.
So I kind of see that. Look at Gensia. I kind of turn to Mark, but I assume Mark at the moment is attempting to convince the guard that Mark is drunker than seems. So I don't want to like make I can see that I don't know that the security guard suspects Mark yet, but still I don't want to disrupt that yet. So I'm going to look at Mark for a moment, and then I'm going to turn my attention to Zelfa, because Zelfa's right there, and with my voice low, I'm going to be like, "This is a problem much greater than we thought, and we have got to consult with each other." And then I sort of pause, because Zelfa may or may not, and be like, "And we can't let anyone else off this car."
Grand. Nothing like knowing that extreme colonizer magic might be on this train.
And the train pulls to a stop at the second to last station.
Of course it does.
But somebody gets on, people approach the middle door. There's like far door, middle door, other far door for this car, for this carriage. And a couple of people like step into the middle one, look around, get incredibly bad vibes, and then scurry out and go to the second car.
I have this. They walk in, right, and we just sort of like glare at them, and Gensia's got the they're just kind of like, we're gonna go to that side there.
Yeah.
Is there like a mass unloading of the car where everyone basically ran into at this station?
I think that, yeah, about like 20% of the overall carriage, the overall car capacity. So like 1/3 of the people that booked it to the second car have gotten off here. But the read that you get of them is that this is not their destination. This is the fuck this getting off the train choice.
Yeah, like those who stay on are committed to reach that party. Like there might be a ghost on the train, but
the party awaits.
Yeah.
So my concern is if at some point, I mean, this may all be automated, but at some point, someone from like train security is going to find out, and is going to come back here, and it's going to get real messy. So I think what I would sort of, again, quietly say to Zelfa, and at this point, if I can see, I don't know, I don't want to, I really am, I did look at Mark, and I was really concerned about not being just like, "Excuse me, person who already suspects," push him away, and then like, I don't want to be that guy. So, but this is not excluding you, Mark, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
I'm just sort of like,
it's good though, because he's trying to basically, if this group of people is associated as, for example, the Bravo of the house, then he doesn't want to necessarily be considered part of that right now,
right.
Because he's the hidden eye. So he's just like pretending to be a guy who's not afraid because he's drunk and not very wise.
Okay.
So that you're reading that correctly.
Okay. So then I would say to Zelfa and Gencia sort of quietly, I'd say, if what you're talking about is accurate, this is exceedingly dangerous, and we need to know how it's possible that such a weapon was taken. But we also can't do this before. We have to do this before we get more security finding out what is coming on the train car and wanting to know what happened. Gencia is there. And then I kind of look over my shoulder at Jevly and all the who are probably, it's only the stare effect is probably only going to last so long, right? And I'm kind of like, you didn't catch anything else? You didn't remember anything else from this vision of yours? An Oblivion Blade is from a dream or a nightmare. You make those things real, people get badly hurt.
I didn't see it, and if this happened 2 months ago, they could be anywhere by now, couldn't they? The wielder.
Yes, that's the problem.
Should we try to lay this ghost to rest? I don't know if I can, especially after just what happened. But do we need to retain it for proof somehow?
Or for information, at least to find out where it was from. If we knew where it was from, we can work backwards. You see, one of the servants, the higher-ups, the steward of the house, or something like that. We need to figure that out somehow, too.
Well, I don't think I can get that close again safely. We've gotten what we've gotten. If I was to try to lay him to rest, it would be from a distance.
So I kind of nod, and I turn a little bit more to Zelfa, and I say, Zelfa, is there any way that you could get a read on Jevly, the vision here? If Graymist is involved in this, there's a problem. If they're not, then we don't want to accuse them. But I don't want to tell them what we know if they are a part of it. Can you read anything from them? Figure out a way to see whether they're interested because they're watching something happen or because they made the something happen. Yes.
I would like to know if Jevly is surprised by anything that is presently happening. Because I know, obviously, that the bodyguard is going to respond to this as if it was a threat, regardless of whether they knew or not. So I need to know specifically if Jevly knew this was going to happen or not.
Sure. What action would Zelfa be using to gain this information? Or are you studying, kind of relying on your accreted knowledge? Are you trying to read in the moment with survey or something else?
It would be study, yes.
Okay. So you want to know whether Jevly was surprised. So I think this is, again, risky limited, because while she is constantly a lot, she's not, there's a degree to which her overtness and her excess allows her to conceal much of her hand.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of a social DDoS.
Very much so.
Wow.
I can't afford to push myself again, so I think I'll just do the thing. Please, a 6. 4.
Okay.
Limited 4 is not very powerful, but still.
Good solid maybe.
It's not that she's surprised. What you get more is disappointment.
Tremendous.
And I'm going to fill bodyguard alert. Unless somebody wants to resist.
I might have a follow-up for the bodyguard that might make this worse. Because I think if the bodyguard's convinced it's real, and his response kind of suggested it was, that while the three were kind of talking amongst themselves, I think Mark would be like, wait, if that's a real ghost, why is she here? Shouldn't you move her to safety, man? So
Yeah.
that might make things work. That I'm sorry, y'all.
So
no, I mean, we're trying to figure everything out on the fly. Like my hands drifting back to the hilt of my sword very slowly.
Yeah, like this bodyguard looks to Mark, looks to Zelfa, looks over to Jevli, who, Zelfa, because you're paying attention, you can see the almost like whatever I do, hers is smaller. And Mark, you're the one nearby, so you're going to get kicked back onto your back as the bodyguard draws his blade.
Let's go.
Yes.
How close am I to the bodyguard?
You are close enough to get stabbed.
Oh my gosh, I am okay with that.
All right.
I am okay. So
upset about all of this.
Okay, so setting the scene. The bodyguard just kicked Mark to the floor.
Yep.
So there is nothing physically in front of the bodyguard right now?
I mean, his sword is about to be. Because he kicks and then goes for the sword.
It's sparring time, y'all.
Yep.
I immediately stand like inches in front of the bodyguard's face.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my hand on the pommel of his sword, but not very forcefully, obviously very seductively instead.
Oh, really?
Really?
Okay.
Because I'm like, what? I'm just like in a holding pattern. I'm like,
she is putting her hand on his sword.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Listen,
the thought that you had right there.
The literal physical sword. But yes.
Right.
Okay.
Metaphor.
I'm not going to say you can't make this roll. I am going to say that it's probably desperate.
You think? Just a little?
Oh yeah, obviously.
Is this a sway that you're trying here?
This is obviously a sway.
Okay. So I think this is, I am sorry, Brandon, a desperate limited sway.
Desperate limited sway. I am taking 2 stress to turn that into desperate standard instead.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Is somebody assisting? This doesn't have to be about supplementary seduction as much as a distraction or some other mitigating factor. Because I want to be a fan of the players.
Can I be like distractingly like making loud sounds of dismay?
Like you're taking a fall in football?
Yeah.
My knee.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh my god.
So Darcie, if you mark 1 stress, like click and add 1 stress to your stress track.
Sure.
In the little diamonds there. And that will give Zelfa plus 1d.
So is that in the top right where it says character 8 XP or?
No, so that I'm going to open your sheet and on the left underneath scandals, there are 8 diamonds.
Oh yeah, I see them.
So I've ticked 1 and that's adding 1 stress.
Right, perfect.
Okay. So yeah, Zelfa, you will get that. Look, your push means you are going to roll sway, desperate, standard plus 1d.
I hate that I can't foresight myself. This will just have to do.
Hey, let's
Okay,
go.
there's a 6.
Okay, cool. Ooh,
So
the most intense seduction
I
ever.
was going to say insta seduction.
it turns out that you're really good at holding someone's attention when you do something that is both unsurprising and really compelling. And so you get a good like 5 or 6 heartbeats of this guy really thinking whether he wants to do this before anything else happens. And like there is a little like there you see his cheeks flush a bit where your play is working, but he's not it is impactful but not disarming, literally or figuratively. But it gives somebody else a moment to do something.
Oh, great.
So whether that is Gencia or Karevis, Mark, you can get up from the floor, but barring something wacky, your like that time for you would be like recombobulating yourself. So Greg, do you want to try to do something here?
I mean, what I'm going to do is not going to help, lower the violence quotient here. I mean, I mean, the thing is, okay, my Karevis's thought process is if Gencia might be able to do some awesome knack thing that could calm everything down, Zelfa has slowed the guy down, but if the guy has already kicked Mark to the floor, something is very off about this, and I'm already thinking about the Oblivion Blade, so I think my sword is out, and I'm pressing my advantage on this guy. I want him down on the ground and him eliminated as a threat. I'm not trying to kill him necessarily, but I want his weapon disarmed, and I do not want Jevly Graymist getting off this train.
Okay.
Until we get answers. So that's what I'm doing.
When you approach him, he disarms you. And
I don't resist.
He shouldn't be able to pull that move. You can resist. This is me going, this threat is scary, and high level threats, I just declare a consequence that you can then resist.
That's how powerful this guy is. Cool.
Well, shit. This is getting better all the time.
House Graymist is tier 5, y'all.
Yeah, but we're not chopped liver. Okay.
Were you expecting that he could disarm you as you came at him? Probably not.
No. I didn't know. Even with the he disarms me. Shoot. Well, I feel like I wasted Zelfa's action then.
Actually, that's a very good point.
If he disarms me with his eyes, then this guy's tier 60. So like this is Sephiroth on steroids.
Before you decided you wanted to attack, there was a thing that I wanted to do.
Okay, well, but wait, let Mike retcon before you do the desperate thing.
What I should actually say is that Zelfa holding him at attention means that he hasn't drawn his blade yet when you come at him.
Okay.
So if you're going to come at him and you want, he doesn't have a blade drawn, how would you take him out of the fight? Because he's going to react to that.
Right. No. And I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, I knew that this guy was probably going to be pretty awesome. I just, I figured like Zelfa is giving us a chance to do something. All right. Okay, so here's what I would do. Observe the situation and anticipate outcomes. I'd like to bring all of chat with me for just a moment to Sherlock Holmes and the Game of Shadows. The great interactive back and forth between Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes. Like he does this, he does this. So I would imagine I'm going to survey using gap in the armor. I can push myself to find a weakness in argument, gesture, or evasion and seize an advantage. And since we've talked quite a bit about how the argument and the conflict for a Bravo are inextricably linked, I think it's reasonable to do this, which is take +1d and +1 effect to the next roll that takes advantage of this information. So what I would like to do is survey is he going to attempt to draw his blade to attack? Can I use this moment of seduction from Zelfa to, I don't know if I can disarm him. Can I... Wait, where's the drunk guy? The guy who's passed out?
Behind you by about 15 feet. I wish I could say otherwise, but it doesn't fit the blocking that I've established.
It's all right. No, it's fine. It's fine. Just for a moment, I was like, wait, no.
But you can absolutely survey to try to read this guy for a weakness.
Yes, I would like to do that.
Okay.
Can I use Gap in the Armor for that?
You absolutely can. So you're rolling survey, and it takes a push to do that, right? You get, when you push, you XYZ.
I'm sorry, say again? Like sorry. I'm pushing
this? When you survey, you may push yourself to find a weakness.
Right, so I got to take a stress is what you're saying.
Yeah, so when you take the stress, it just happens.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you gain, you can get access to information you wouldn't normally access.
No,
because
that's
you still
what I
have to
need
get,
here.
yes, you still have to roll the survey.
But I do get the plus 1D to that, and right? And to
you take plus 1D and effect to the next roll that takes advantage of this information. So it's a setup action for yourself.
Right, but on the survey.
You do get the push die on the survey.
Okay, cool. All right. So my position is, oh crap. What's my
so
position?
I think this is Desperate Limited.
Jeez. Okay. So, but because of the plus 1 effect.
So the plus 1 effect is the next roll.
Damn it. Okay, limited. All right, Desperate Limited. And I think it'll give you 1 more D. Yeah, and 1 bonus die.
Yes. Or you can roll Desperate Standard with your normal dice pool. If you get a limited success, I will give you a smaller weakness, and you will get plus 1D or plus 1 effect from Gap in the Armor.
All right, then I'm gonna get rid of the bonus die then. So instead, I will do Gap in the Armor. So it's Desperate, and I'm going
Desperate
Standard, but not a bonus die.
Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, I have 2 in survey, so.
Brandon, is this something that you might have had foresight about in some previous conversation with Karevis?
If we're ever on a train with a ghost, remember this moment.
Or like, did you have a conversation?
Because I do feel like we would have had some level of conversation about, well, what do we actually do if we actually discover X, Y, and Z on the train? So yeah, definitely. But I'm also kind of curious whether this situation in particular also just kind of naturally generates an advantage as well.
Yeah.
In which case I want to definitely take advantage of both the foresight and that.
Yeah, you can only give 1 assist, but you can do it from the seduction or from foresight, referring to something that you've done previously.
Well, the foresight is free, so obviously I'm going to do the foresight, okay. I guess.
All right. So that will give you 1 bonus die, Karevis.
Okay. 1 bonus die. Okay. All right. That's it? That's all? Okay. For the listeners at home, that was not a good roll.
That's a 2, 2, and a 3. You do get some information. Is that
it's that I suck?
Well, no. The weakness in the moment for him is that this man is not a fencer. This man is a killer.
Okay. Great.
So when you come at him, he chops at your wrist, which like completely fouls whatever fencing technique you are attempting to do. Like you're taking a blade to a Terminator. Not that he has super strength, just that in every moment he is doing the maximally efficient thing to bust up your shit. But you can act on that information.
Yeah, we are overmatched. It's time to escape T2. The problem is that we're going to leave behind. Oh boy, this is a mess. No, wait a minute though. Is that a complication?
No. The complication is that the secretary pulls out a weird looking knife and is going to stab you in the side.
Like, no, actually, this is the actual complication. Thank you for asking.
But
yeah,
this can be resisted. And Mark, you are in a position to be able to do something about it, because this would be level 3 harm. What's the right term for you're not oblivioned yet, but you're on the route to oblivion, short train to oblivion.
Me?
Yeah.
I have special armor that resists a
At
complication.
Oblivion's door.
So I think the level 3
throw
harm,
something.
you
Can I
absolutely
throw
can.
a wine bottle at it?
Y'all will be able to do something about it. But yeah, the harm for this would be insensate.
Insensate.
That doesn't sound good. I would like to ask, obviously, a question. Would this complication, by your description, be related to suspicion?
I don't know that it's about suspicion, because this is like we're past the suspicion for him. For this group.
Found the bad guy.
I reckon that's like still within the territory of, I mean, we haven't blown the secretary's cover, but the secretary is worried that we might or will.
Sure, I'm just going to look
conflict
at
is already happening.
Yeah. Suspicion or persuasion. So you have there's basically any number of people that could resist this. What I'm curious is, who has an idea for how they resist this?
Well, I would like to maybe use my special ability, draw that into this, because I may push myself to perform an act of stealth or athletics, which borders on the superhuman.
Yep.
And I would like to throw up a full bottle of wine at the secretary's like face or something.
Yep, we're just going full Jeremy Renner here. Just
yeah,
like we're
just
talking
like,
about. Like
just
like,
do it.
Bam. Guess what?
Yes. So what I'm going to say with Shadow is that you don't have to push yourself to do that, because what you would be doing here is you're going to use the teamwork ability, protect a teammate, and that lets you resist a consequence for someone.
Okay.
And what that means is detection or security. That's not going to be that. To do that, you're going to roll a. So the trick is that would be a body resist, and you would only be rolling 1 die to do that.
Yeah,
so
which is a problem.
that Mark is especially good at. You're much better at the proactive version of this than of the reactive version of this. So you're welcome to do it. You will resist that consequence, but it might cost you a lot of stress.
I'm gonna do it. Take that stress. Oh,
so
don't roll
you're gonna click on the word body.
Okay.
And you're gonna say bonus dice 0.
Okay.
And it should roll that resist for you.
Oh, I knew it.
That is gonna mean that you're gonna mark 5 stress.
He's very stressed out right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that doesn't take you out of play. But so you're throwing a wine bottle, is that right?
Yes, a full one. It's a very heavy bottle of wine.
Okay. Do you want it to be hard because it's silly, or do you want it to be hard for some other reason?
I'm going to say hard because it's not a typical weapon. It's very silly, but it's all he got on him right now.
So you see her pull out the knife. You throw a bottle, and she just ducks. And you have to throw another one, and then a third.
Yeah.
And like you have to pick up a bottle that's already empty from like sitting on the floor and like huck it underhand at her. And in all of that, she just gets a scrap, like basically a level 1 harm equivalent on Karevis. But Karevis, if you were to take armor or have some other way that you could do that, then you can get rid of this harm entirely.
Yes, I do not want to be oblivioned. I'm going to
So what does it do? Does it delete your armor?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's true. I mean, like...
So it doesn't have like an armor piercing trait or anything, but when you use the armor, if this is your breastplate.
Yeah, we talked about the breastplate. It's a good thing I polished it.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time to polish because it's like, Greg, you play a lot of D&D, right?
I do.
What if a knife was a rust monster?
Yeah, great. So it's just this big slash, like lightsaber leaving slash across.
Yeah, it's a like it sparks off of your breastplate, because you're able to turn enough and take it on that instead of the back, which not plate. And so it tears through your nice doublet or jacket or whatever you're wearing, and we get some sparks coming across the breastplate, but what it leaves is just a gash of rust and like a rent slash in the metal.
And that came from the knife of the secretary, right?
Yes, the knife that the secretary is wearing that looks, so it's silver. It's got inlaid like small emerald type things, and then there are fullers in the blade. So it's more like it's a one-edged blade, right? It's not double-edged. And there's 2 fullers in it, and the fullers are like the gap in the fuller is painted like stained red. Fullers are actually meant to lighten the blade, so it doesn't weigh as much. There is some apocryphal storytelling about fullers that are like, oh, those are so that the blade doesn't get stuck in the person, and like that's where they're like blood runner. That's not what they actually are, but here it kind of seems like it maybe is.
Is Jensia getting vibes off?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
That knife is like the magic equivalent of uranium.
Spectacular. Everything you said in the last hour has gotten better than everything before it. I do have a question just one quick question. Yeah. Can I read, having had my soul within a second of being oblivioned, does the secretary seem like the badass warrior that I know the security guard is, or was this season 1 of The Mandalorian Moff Gideon using a dark saber which he doesn't really know how to use? Like, is this just a person with an incredible weapon, or is this an incredible person with also an incredible weapon?
It's only because she got the drop on you.
I love that. Go ahead, say what you're going to say, Brendan. I'm going to say goodnight to my kid, and then I'm so excited to talk about this got the drop on me thing.
So I would like to channel to do a thing.
Okay, tell me about this.
Describe the handle of this blade as far as I can see within the secretary's hand.
So it's a lot like a nice. So if you have a nice silverware set, and then you add some fantasy Ren Fair bullshit to it, and then you take that bullshit up several tax brackets.
Nice, cool, grand. I would like to craft the handle so it stabs them.
Oh shit!
Dang, I just got back for that. It's tremendous.
Okay, interesting, tricky.
Very much so, I imagine.
So
I mean, I don't want to stab them with the blade. I just want to essentially make the handle suddenly turn into like very sharp spikes.
Okay, yeah. Well, she's not expecting that. So I think this is going to be desperate standard.
Desperate standard. Let's make that happen. This is my second desperate roll for the night, isn't it? I'm gonna have to mark some XP.
It's probably going to be desperate from here on in.
I was going to say, there's been a lot of desperate. We are in big trouble.
I can't take any more stress, so this will just have to be it.
I could offer you a lady's favor.
I've already rolled. It's a 1. I'm very sorry.
Okay. Interesting.
So my resistance, I can help with something magic related, can't I?
Yes. So the thing that is about to happen to Zelfa is that the enchantment on that blade is going to kind of erase her connection to like the people of this city. Like she's not fully oblivioned, but it's going to go after the part that is most central to her, which is her ties to her community. And the level 3 harm would be amnesiac.
This thing needs to be nuked from orbit. What on earth?
I don't like that at all. I can't
so
do anything about it.
That using my special armor on that one.
Okay, so you're able to detect like the vector of feedback that is kind of rippling back at Zelfa, where she's reaching out with Ardcraft, and this just like really intense backlash is happening. And this magic is not quite like Javelin magic, but it's more like Javelin magic than Ardcraft. And so what it's kind of like is she was reaching out to the like metal, like that kind of elemental aspect of this thing, and was basically getting seismic waves backlash that was going to hit her spirit. And so that is what you have to interrupt.
Okay. Well, so I had an action that I was going to try to do with magic and the knife. Can we like combine those so that like, or because basically I had one idea about what to do about the knife, and so I don't know if that would be this special armor resistance or if it would be better to be the action.
So this knife is probably not something that can be taken care of within a resistance. So I think you'll need to resist to protect Zelfa and then do something about the knife.
Okay.
And Brandon, if Jency were not in a position to resist, you could resist yourself. It would probably just take you out of the scene.
Is the thing that I'd like to avoid. I'd want everybody to be present as much as possible.
Same.
I just wanted to make sure that the can't resist was should not resist, not is incapable mechanically of resisting. Because otherwise that would be too mean for me to do to Zelfa.
I'll say for the resistance, Jensia would basically sort of interpose herself physically between Zelfa and the knife, and use that to sort of break the connection and let the sort of seismic wave sort of maybe dissipate kind of in the air.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're expending your special armor, do you want to take what is left over yourself, or are you just dispelling most of it? Because you're going to take a level 3 harm down to a level 1 harm. That either you can take yourself or you can have spared Jensia most of. Or sorry, you've spared Zelfa most of.
Is it something, Zelfa, are you okay with? Because I mean, Jency is saving her strength to try to combat the knife directly. So I'm thinking that she would just try to minimize it for Zelfa, but not take it herself.
No, yeah,
that's okay.
that's fine. I wanted to avoid as much as possible losing the opportunity to continue performing my obligation, so I'm curious what this level 1 harm would be, but I am open to taking a level 1 harm so we can continue engaging with this conflict.
Yeah, so the level 1 harm version is not like, it's not especially bad. It is level 1 harm disheartened. Because I see this as a source of strength for Zelfa. And so the smallest version is like a lessening. You like they buoy you up less than they should. You know, like a little bit of that joy and source of strength is as if it has been pulled from you tight. So you don't forget anything, but it is a emotional harm, spiritual emotional harm.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So Zelfa reached out to do magic. Jensia interposed. Karevis got stabbed at. I know that Jensia wanted to act. Because we're at 11:20, what I will say scene-wise is, if you can turn the tables on this, basically the bodyguard, that's the big threat here physically. So what I'll ask kind of at the writer's room level is, how are you going to deal with this bodyguard who his next move is take the knife from the secretary and come at all of you like he is the Winter Soldier. Where in that knife fight with Cap, every attack that Winter Soldier is making is a kill shot.
Yeah. The only way this, well, yeah, as you said, this is writer's room stuff. Go ahead.
Jency is trying to neutralize the knife.
Right.
Okay.
And so if it ends up in the bodyguard's possession, then hopefully she could like kind of glancingly get him with the neutralization. And even if she doesn't hurt him very much, she's removed his weapon.
Okay. Yeah.
So that seems like that would help if it works.
So we can do that one and then see where that leads us.
I wanna assist with an action.
Okay, would that be a setup action then?
Yeah. I'm still directly in front of the bodyguard, yes?
Right.
I want to keep leaning on that sway.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna make another one.
I think this is Desperate Zero.
Wow. So
still seductive. But wait.
Fair enough.
I think that window has closed.
Fair. Which would presume then that the only other option, given this closeness, is to be physically violent. I have no dots in any body actions. But I do have a concealed weapon on me.
It's way easier to assist by spending 1 stress than it is to roll an action you're bad at.
Yes. I'll just do. In fact, no. I have another foresight. Take my other foresight.
Well, right. I was about to say this though. This to me, this is the play. If Jensia can neutralize the knife, can Mark, Zelfa, and me freaking subdue the Winter Soldier? I mean, there are. I know they're tier 5, but there are 3 of us, and we're not tier -3. Like, if we can do that.
So a group action to try to neutralize this bodyguard is absolutely an option. And your situation probably gets much less desperate if Jency is able to neutralize the Oblivion Blade.
Okay, so maybe you're thinking Foresight, have Zelfa Foresight the Oblivion Blade neutralization thing?
That's up to Brandon.
presumably.
Yeah, that is what I would prefer.
Okay.
The Oblivion Blade is, to Zelfa, the greatest possible threat, because no matter who wields it, they're going to be more dangerous than a subdued bodyguard.
Sure. Okay. So what does your help for Gensia look like? Is this in the moment, or is this some previous conversation or something?
I think, the way that I have it in my head is, I think we've had a previous conversation in our training about, yes, I know I've taught you some magic and stuff like that. You know how to resolve most magical conflicts without having to get physical. But every once in a while, you will find yourself in a situation like the one we're in right now, where the most dangerous person in the room is not an assassin with a loaded gun, but an idiot with a loaded gun. And you're going to have to reach for the gun before someone pulls the trigger. And you're going to have to do whatever is necessary to put yourself between them and whatever is potentially at magical risk in that moment. So I think we practiced wrestling for a day and a half. Simply to put Gensia in the condition to respond at a moment's notice to a magical object being a free-for-all in a particularly tense moment.
Okay. So what does Gensia neutralizing the blade look like?
Okay. So tell me if this makes sense. But so what I was imagining is that she goes in the pocket again and she pulls out a glass vial that's basically full of like soapy water, and she blows a bubble, and then the bubble expands like way bigger than it should. And to pull in what Zelfa had taught her, sort of like, I think she probably is very close to the bodyguard, and she's sort of staying kind of nimble so that if he was to come for her, she could go out of reach. And the bubble stays bubble-like and goes onto his hand with the knife, and then she basically like solidifies it. So
Okay.
she is quarantine bubbling the knife, and also she's taking his hand off at the wrist.
Off or stuck?
Lightsaber off?
Because whichever, like,
okay,
we can decide on.
Sure. So that's very cool. I think without any stuff involved, that would be desperate limited, but you're a knack. So what gear might you have that assists in this situation?
So I was presuming whatever sort of like solution she's using to carry the magic, basically. You know, she made the bubble out of something so that she made that to be particularly good to take the magic up.
So let's see.
And this would be when I would be using my extra D from the knowledge. Is that
sure?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think if you tick a fine arcane focus or a vulgar display of power for me, I think you can have desperate standard.
Okay.
Because vulgar display of power on its own is not automatically effect, but I think could apply here because this is, it's very overt, it's very direct.
There we go. Sorry.
Yep. So that'll give you desperate standard. Take your +1D from following through on open mind, and your +1D from the assist from Zelfa. So that should put you at 5 dice total.
Crit. I believe in you, Gensia.
Okay, 4, 3, 4, 5, 2. So on a 4-5, you do it. So you take his, like, the hand comes off with the blade solidified. Is this like a hollow glass bubble, or did the whole thing become solid?
A hollow glass bubble is what I'm thinking, but it won't shatter. It'll just like fall to the ground and stay there.
So yeah, I'm going to describe not in detail, but a hand coming off. So skip ahead a couple of seconds if that's not something that's okay with you. So you hear the shh, and the hand comes off and he like cradles it. But there is some kind of feedback just from the blade itself. And as this happens, you realize that this is what was happening to Zelfa. And it's not that somebody was pushing back. It's that this thing is so powerfully and toxically enchanted that to do a working against it is to invite incredible harm. And so on a desperate consequence, you would take a level 3 harm. I think that would be disenchanted, and you would be cut off from magic while this harm persists.
But I can resist.
You can
that,
resist.
Right? Okay,
yes.
I've used my free resistance, but just regular resistance.
So you could resist with spirit under a standard resist.
Okay. So remind me what to click.
So click on the word spirit and it should set you up with a resist roll.
Okay. And no bonus dice.
No bonus dice.
Okay.
Yeah. So that costs 3 stress.
Okay.
But you're able to kind of put up your mental and magical shields against this thing, doing much like you had done with Zelfa. And so you're going to instead take the level 1 harm muddled, where like some of your magical senses are impacted.
Okay.
Like a bad sinus allergy day, but
Sure.
for magic. However, that means that this bodyguard no longer has his dominant hand. So what I want to ask Mark and Karevis is, how do you want to do this?
Well, I will allow Mark to describe first. I know what Karevis will finish off doing, but
Well, all right, I'm going to say that my character isn't exactly the best at fighting. So if it's clear that he's not running in alone, like he's backup to the guy who actually is,
Okay.
he will essentially do a low kind of lunge and grab for the legs and like start biting.
Okay.
Like I'm sure it doesn't do much, but that's all he's got.
I was
Okay.
like, no, and then biting. I'm like, oh, okay, then
Yeah.
we have that. All right.
Right, but you're already satisfying one of the great 2v1 tactics, which is I'll go low, you go high.
Yes, there you go.
Yep. All right, so if that happens, then I can go high. But I have a question. What has happened to the secretary? Is the secretary like, what are they doing? Because they were not a fighter and they don't have the weapon. Are they backing up?
They are. Actually, she's just jumped out the side.
Oh, actually, okay.
Yeah.
Has Jevly jumped out the side?
No, Jevly is horrified.
Good. Oh, really? Oh, wait, really? Horrified. Okay, so I'm going to go high on this guy. I can do a roll if you want, although with a hand cut off and the biting of the legs and that might be enough.
No.
Push him down. And at that point, because I'm trying to think if at any point I ever actually had a chance to draw my sword, because I wasn't auto disarmed. I think that that never actually happened. So this time I do have my sword drawn, and I have him down with with Mark still biting away at the legs, with sort of one foot, and I have the sword out at Jevly, who is still horrified, I imagine, and I say very quietly in a very deadly voice, I say, Zelfa, we're going to find out, with your knowledge and skill, exactly how much this person knows about the persons that she hires, and why that thing, I say looking at the hand plus blade in a bubble, is in her house's possession. And the conversation begins now.
Okay. So we're not going to need any more dice rolls except for maybe one thing. Jevli is very good at social shit. And so you might be confident that she knew what was going on and she is throwing this man under the bus.
Right.
But you have no proof.
I don't even know.
And
I'm not even
that
sure.
is what that conversation gives you, that you may doubt her honesty, you may doubt her empathy to what has happened, but she is a scion of the first house, and she has disowned and disavowed this man. So he's going to get locked up for a very long time. But there's nothing here that can give you a string on her.
Right.
And so in summary, like epilogue, what I will say is that with this man down, Gensia realizes, is down and in pain in the same place that this man died. And so what you see is kind of a sped up version of what you'd seen before. And the man blinks from his seat to standing and backpedaling, and then getting stabbed, falling, and disintegrating. And like the overlay image disintegrates kind of through and around where this man Oliveri is. And because of that, like synchronicity and like the sympathetic tie spatially, and probably you would imagine because of the time, you get the whole picture. You see that the man is here, and Oliveri in a different outfit approaches him. The dead man stands, they talk, the dead man begins to backpedal, and Oliveri approaches calmly, and this same blade comes out of his sleeve and goes into the man. The man disappears. The blade comes back into the sleeve, and Oliveri walks onto the next train car. And that's what happened. But you don't know why or who this man was. And that is something we'll have to find out next time on Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign from Speculate. So that was fun and wild. I want to say, first off, thank you to everybody for watching, and to the lovely mod team here at twitch.tv, Arvin Elleron, for taking care of everybody. I want to say thank you to our special guest, Darcie Little Badger, and thank you to our lovely cast, Rhiannon, Brandon, and Greg. And before we all say goodnight, I'm going to ask everybody to remind the folks that are watching now or later on the VODs where they can find you and your work, starting with our guest, Darcie.
Oh, yeah. So you can find my work. I guess I'm most active. I really need to update my blog. I haven't updated my blog in like a year. So, but my books are in most bookstores near you, and I'm on Instagram as Dr. Little Badger. And I just literally started a Twitch account like 3 weeks ago because I needed to finish edits on my book. So that's here as well. And I'm under author Little Badger. And yeah, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for including me in this adventure. It was awesome. I really enjoyed myself, everyone.
All right. Thank you again, Darcie. It was lovely to have you. And so then we're going to repeat our outro thing. So Rhiannon, if you want to go first, and that's going to be Brandon,
Sure.
me, and Greg.
I am on Twitter mostly, kind of, in as much as Twitter is there to be on, at Rhiannon Held, rhiannonheld.com. Check out my books, the Silver series under Rhiannon Held, or the Amsterdam Institute series under RZ Held. The first one is Clean Install, and it is now complete, if that is something you're interested in. So take a look at those.
As for me, you can find me almost anywhere on the internet at The Rising Tides, which includes Twitch, because sometimes I stream, very rarely, but I did stream recently, so I'm trying to do that again. I am the author of the poetry collection Can You Sign My Tentacle, which won the 2022 Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association Elgin Award. So if you want to check that out, definitely please do the thing. Among other things, I will only shout out two other things, which is one, I am writing the Grey Shade RPG. That is the tie-in RPG to Greg's wonderful book, Grey Shade. And Renegade is also very cool. So if you don't have a copy of if you haven't gotten your hands on Renegade yet, please keep your eye out to get a copy of that, because that's also going to be very cool. And also the other thing that I will tell you right now is that the Queer Games bundle on itch.io is presently available for all of Pride Month. So if you want to get literally hundreds of games for only $60, you should check that out on itch as soon as possible, which actually has a couple of my small things in it as well. So definitely check that out as well. And that's me.
So I just saw that you can pre-order Renegade online at Barnes & Noble. That link broke for whatever reason, but if you search for Renegade on barnesandnoble.com, you can find it. It's probably also on bookshop.org, so you can order and support independent bookstores. So I would recommend doing that. I am Mike Underwood. I publish as Michael R. Underwood. I've been your dancing master and had a great deal of fun creating a surprisingly funny, but then instantly terrifying train ride for these retainers as the dancing master for Valloward. The series is an early selection for the New Jersey Web Fest, and we're really excited to find out whether we are nominated for anything in August when stuff is announced. And then I and potentially other members of the team are going to try to get up there to Montclair and see all the people at the Web Fest, which we're really excited about. I have in the last couple of weeks done some streams about RPGs. I did a stream walking through the Candela Obscura Quick Start Guide, that being the new RPG coming from Darrington Press, the Critical Role company, designed by Spencer Stark and Rowan Hall. And that is pretty cool. And then I did another video that was about GMing story, like narrative focused games like Candela Obscura or Blades in the Dark or Court of Blades, because this is my jam. And that video is especially designed to help GMs who are mostly familiar with 5e, who are interested in trying out something like Candela or Blades in the Dark or Court of Blades. So if you know somebody's like that, who maybe that would be helpful to, or that somebody is you can check those out at youtube.com/c/Mike Underwood. And I stream video games and other stuff like that design at twitch.tv/turbotango. Over to you, Greg.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks to Darcie for being awesome as usual, and thank you, of course, to Brandon and Rhiannon for also always being awesome, and great work, Mike, today as always. Yeah, that went from funny to oh crap, we stumbled into level 75 boss real quick. So that is going to be a very interesting next session where we're like, what the hell just happened in the last last thing. As was said, this is not only my channel that we're streaming on under our Vanilla Run, but I also am an author, a college professor, and as was said, this book, this is the arc for it. This book is going to be out in July 25th, and you can also, if you go type in ! Greyshade, there is a link there that will allow you to go and pre-order this book and the third book, Heretic, which I'm working on right now. That'll be out next year, plus the tabletop game with Brandon designing it, as we've discussed, coming out late this year, and an audiobook from the amazing Trent Sparks of Greyshade, which came out really well too. So very excited about that. And Greyshade runs into some crazy people too, but man, you never want to hear "you haven't been oblivioned yet." That's my quote for the evening of the oh crap. But wonderful work as the dancing master from Mike. Thank you to everyone for watching us. I will be back on this channel tomorrow night after my son's birthday party, which is going to be rather extensive, I think. A lot of bouncy castle, but we'll be back tomorrow night with some Jedi Survivor. Otherwise, we'll be back with more Speculate coming up soon as well, with more Valloward later on, so you'll see us there too. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you everyone for following. Please support the Speculate Patreon so we can do more of this stuff. !Speculate. You can get behind the scenes information about the Patreon over there and about the podcast and the stuff that we do there, as we are now in our 11th, I think, year of production with this podcast since it was started many years ago. So yeah, very good stuff from everybody. Thank you, all the wonderful players, and thank you to chat and all the amazing viewers and listeners, and we'll be back at you soon. So that's it for now. None of us were oblivion. Bye.
Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Primi Mohammed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.